Chapter 519. Seeing that Jianqin had refused to represent the Qin Empire in forming an alliance with the Huang family, the ancestor of the Huang family side. He was not surprised by this result, because he had already guessed that Jianqin would refuse. Before, he had only been holding onto a sliver of hope, but now, Jianqin had destroyed the ancestor's last hope. "Senior, I'm truly sorry. This matter involves too many things. I really don't dare to make the decision," Jianqin said apologetically. From the ancestor's expression, he could faintly see just how much pressure this old man was under for the sake of the Huang family. "I can understand your difficulties. Although the Qin Huang kingdom is one of the 8 strongest kingdoms in the continent, we don't dare to look down on any Saint King level powerhouse. Furthermore, if we get involved in this matter, we will offend for Saint Kings. If I were in your shoes, I wouldn't agree to this request." The Huang ancestor side, Jianqin hesitated for a moment before saying, "Senior, although I cannot let the Qin Empire get involved in this matter, if there is a need, I will do my best to help the Huang family." Seeing how serious Jianqin was, the ancestor of the Huang family felt rather touched. He smiled. "Jianqin, old man appreciates your intentions, but a battle between saint rulers is not something a heaven saint master can interfere with. Your talent is unparalleled, and it would not be an exaggeration to call you the greatest genius in the history of the Tianyuan continent. If you cultivate diligently, you will definitely surpass old man in the future. As a result, you should work hard to increase your strength. Once you reach saint ruler in the future, my Huang family might need your help." Jianqin hesitated for a moment before saying, "Senior, although I know that saint rulers are very powerful, and I have experienced the tip of the iceberg when I was in the sect of Dragon and Tiger, my understanding of just how powerful saint rulers are still extremely vague. I wonder if Senior can let me witness the strength of a saint ruler and see just how much of a difference there is between me and a saint ruler if I try my best and see if I can resist." The reason why Jianqin said this was because he wanted to understand the strength of a saint ruler even more clearly. This was because the saint ruler of the sect of Dragon and Tiger was already greedy for the origin energy of the sword spirits. Although his identity as the imperial protector made the sect of Dragon and Tiger not dare to openly oppose him, Jianqin was afraid that the saint ruler of the sect of Dragon and Tiger would secretly attack him. As long as he understood the exact strength of a saint ruler, then Jianqin would be able to come up with a plan in time when he was attacked by a saint ruler in the future. "Jianqin, the difference between a saint ruler and a heaven saint master is far greater than you can imagine. A saint ruler has already comprehended the mysteries of the world. Every action of his can use the power of the world. As the saying goes, everyone below saint ruler is an ant. In front of a saint ruler, a heaven saint master is indeed as weak as an ant. However, since you want to witness the strength of a saint ruler, then old man will satisfy your curiosity," the ancestor indifferently said. As soon as he finished speaking, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared, trapping Jianqin inside like a prison. "Jianqin, this is a barrier that only a saint ruler can use. It contains the laws of the world and is inextricably linked to the world. You can treat this barrier as another space. Although this barrier is extremely weak in front of a saint ruler, it is not something a heaven saint master can break through. Only when the power of the barrier is about to run out can a heaven saint master break through it," the ancestor said. The ancestor's voice clearly reached Jianqin's ears. Hearing this, Jianqin did not waver. He immediately used the origin energy of the sword spirits. The dense violet light condensed into a sword in his right hand and immediately slashed at the barrier. "It's useless. This is a barrier personally cast down by old man unless its power runs out. It's impossible for a heaven saint master to break through. This is because this barrier involves the power of an even higher domain. It's not something a heaven saint master can touch," the ancestor said with a smile. The ancestor of the Huang family smiled. He did not believe that Jianqin could break through the barrier he had cast down. At this moment, the origin energy of the sword spirits came into contact with the barrier. With a pop, the barrier was shattered. With a pop, Jianshin's sword pierced through the bubble-like barrier. The entire barrier was like a balloon that had been pierced through by a needle, disappearing without a trace. The expression on old ancestor Huang's face suddenly froze. He stared blankly at the broken barrier in front of him, his face full of disbelief. How is this possible? You can actually break through the barrier cast down by old man. The ancestor muttered in a daze. He was extremely shocked. The ancestor quickly returned to normal. He curiously stared at the origin energy of the sword spirits in Jianshin's hand and sighed, "What great power!" Seeing the ancestor's expression, Jianshin could not help but smile. He clasped his hands and said, "Senior, please enlighten me." The ancestor stood up from the stone chair. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at Jianshin. He sternly said, "Jianshin, barriers are only a technique that saint rulers possess. It's not a saint ruler's attack. Now, old man will show you the true difference between a saint ruler and a heaven saint master. Feel free to attack." Jianshin also distanced himself from the stone table. The origin energy of the sword spirits in his right hand shone with a dazzling azure light. It was like two serpents coiling around each other in the form of a yin and yang diagram, but they did not touch each other. Jianshin calmed himself down. Against a saint ruler, he did not dare to hold back at all. He used all the origin energy of the sword spirits he could use to the limit. His right arm suddenly trembled. His powerful body actually turned his right arm into a blur as he stabbed forward with lightning speed. With a flash of azure light, the origin energy of the sword spirits had already arrived 3 inches away from the ancestor's chest. At this moment, the origin energy could not advance any further. Jianshin's face changed slightly. He slid forward and pushed the origin energy of the sword spirits as hard as he could. However, no matter how hard he tried, the origin energy was unable to advance any further, not even the slightest. Jianshin's eyes flashed. He decisively withdrew his sword and retreated. With a slight sway of his body, he circled behind the ancestor and continued to attack. However, the result was the same as last time. When the origin energy of the sword spirits was 3 inches away from the ancestor, it could not advance any further. What's going on? Jianshin was very surprised. This was the first time he had seen a saint ruler's technique, but Jianshin could not understand it at all. Jianshin, now you understand just how great the difference between a saint ruler and a heaven saint master is. Even if a saint ruler stood there without moving, a heaven saint master would not be able to harm him. The ancestor gently smiled. Senior, can you tell me just how you did it? Although he did not harm the ancestor at all, Jianshin was not discouraged. Instead, he asked curiously. The ancestor turned around and looked at the lesson plan. He smiled and said, "This is the secret of space." The secret of space? Jianshin softly murmured. He frowned as if he was deep in thought. The ancestor said, "Heaven Saint Masters control the energy of the world. They can use the energy of the world to fly. Saint rulers have comprehended the mysteries of the world and can use the power of space. Just now, I used the power of space. In the eyes of others, you are only 3 inches away from hitting me. However, you probably don't know that this distance of 3 inches in the eyes of others is actually several kilometers away. Moreover, depending on the saint ruler's comprehension of space, this distance can be extended indefinitely. Unless you can cross this distance or break through space, you will not be able to harm a saint ruler. Space. So this is the power of space." Jianshin came to a realization. He now had a deeper understanding of the strength of a saint ruler. Space was just too far away from him right now. Now you understand how great the difference between a saint ruler and a heaven saint master is. The ancestor said to Jianshin like a senior teaching a junior, "I understand. The mysteries of the world really are powerful. They can actually control space. If that's the case, saint rulers can fly very quickly. Jianshan's face became rather stern. Correct. The ancestor of the Huang family said, saint rulers have already begun to comprehend the mysteries of space, so it is indeed extremely fast. A few experts who have a deep enough comprehension of space can cross several hundred or even several thousand kilometers with a single step. However, there are very few people who have reached that level of comprehension on the Tianyuan continent right now. Jianshan furrowed his brows tightly because he thought of the saint ruler from the sect of Dragon and Tiger. If a saint ruler was so fast, then he would not even have the strength to run away from a saint ruler. Although Jianshan was not sure whether the saint ruler of the sect of Dragon and Tiger would act against him, he still needed to be on guard. He needed to be on his guard. Afterwards, Jianshan and the ancestor chatted casually for a while before leaving the mountain. He then returned to the Huang family's villa alone. Fourth young master, you've returned from the ancestor's place so quickly. Just as Jianshan arrived above the Huang family's villa, the wind and cloud elders flew up from below and greeted Jianshan in a friendly manner. Jianshan smiled. I finished my discussion with the ancestor. I plan on returning to the kingdom of Jessen. Thank you, seniors, and the Huang family for your hospitality. The wind and cloud elders looked at each other when they heard that. A sliver of worry appeared between their brows. The wind elder said, Fourth young master, why are you leaving so soon? Why don't you stay a little longer? I have no choice. I have a bunch of friends at home. I can't just leave them all to the side. Moreover, I still have matters to attend to, Jianshan said. Fourth young master, it's rare for you to come to the Huang family. Why don't you go and see the young lady first? The wind elder said. Jianshan hesitated. The days he spent with Huang Wan immediately appeared in his mind. After not seeing her for so long, he missed her a little. Chapter 5:20. Next, the wind and cloud elders personally led the way for Jianshan. They shuttled through the Huang clan's manor without any obstructions. Along the way, those who recognized the wind and cloud elders all bowed respectfully to them. The wind and cloud elders clearly held a very high position in the Huang clan. The Huang clan's manor was very large. Jianshan and the wind and cloud elders walked side by side. They chatted and laughed along the way, causing all the young people in the Huang clan's manor to be curious. They all guessed Jianshan's identity in their hearts. After walking for a while with the wind and cloud elders in the Huang clan's manor, the three of them finally arrived at their destination. They stopped in front of a small two-story loft. Fourth young master, this is the young lady's boudoir. The young lady had instructed us earlier that if the fourth young master were to come, you can directly enter. Elder Feng looked meaningfully at Jianshan and said with a smile. Elder Yin, who was standing by the side, also had the same expression. Jianshan sized up the small loft in front of him. He did not notice the expressions on the wind and cloud elders' faces. He stood outside the small loft and hesitated for a moment. Then he moved forward and gently pushed open the wooden door, entering the loft. The layout of the first floor of the loft was a large hall. Although it was clean and spotless, it was empty. There was not a single person in sight. At the end, a wooden staircase led directly to the second floor. Jianshan hesitated for a moment. Then he gently stepped onto the second floor. As soon as he reached the second floor, a faint fragrance assailed his nostrils. With a single breath, he actually felt a sense of ecstasy. It was as if it could steal one's mind unknowingly, causing one to be uncontrollably infatuated with this fragrance. Jianshan fiercely inhaled the faint fragrance that filled the entire space. Soon after, he could not help but exclaim, "What an enchanting fragrance!" Jianshan's voice was not loud. However, in this quiet loft, it was no different from a sudden clap of thunder. No one could ignore it. Jianshan looked around and sized up his surroundings. He discovered that this was a very warmly decorated room. Although the decorations inside could not be considered luxurious, they were decorated beautifully with little toys that young girls loved. Anyone who came here for the first time would be able to accurately determine that this was a girl's room. In the middle of the room, there was a neatly tidied little bed. The little bed was very small and could only accommodate one person to sleep on it. On the yellow bedsheet, there was a stack of yellow blankets stacked on top of each other. All kinds of marks showed that this blanket had not been touched for a long time. And there was a window. At this moment, a woman was standing quietly in front of the window with her back facing Jianchen. She was lost in thought as she stared at the scenery outside. The woman wore a long black dress. Her long black hair flowed down naturally, perfectly blending with her dress. She had a unique charm, although the woman's appearance could not be seen. Just from her perfect and tall figure, one could guess that she definitely had an extraordinary appearance. Jianchen's gaze was fixed on the woman's back. Although he could not see the woman's appearance, from the familiar figure and a feeling in his mind, he was able to determine the identity of the woman in front of him. She was Huang Wan, whom he had not seen for a long time. Jianchen quietly stared at Huang Wan's back. He could not help but smile as he thought of the scene when he first met Huang Wan. "Miss Huang Wan, I haven't seen you for a long time. You're even more elegant than before," Jianchen said softly with a faint smile on his face. Hearing that, Huang Wan's body trembled slightly. She bit her lips and hesitated. She seemed to have made a great decision. Finally, she slowly turned around. Her expression was complicated and joyful as she stared at Jianchen's handsome face. They had not seen each other for almost half a year. Huang Wan's appearance was indeed more beautiful than before. Compared to half a year ago, she was even more beautiful. She was a natural beauty. Her appearance could cause the downfall of countries. She was flawless. It was not an exaggeration to say that she could captivate the birds and beasts and outshine the moon and flowers. Huang Wan stared at Jianchen in a daze with her limpid eyes. She gently opened her mouth and said softly, "Should I call you Jianchen or Changyang Shoten?" Jianchen chuckled and said, "Just call me Jianchen because I like that name. I only use the name Changyang Shoten at home. Outside I am Jianchen." Huang Wan gently moved her feet and arrived before Jianchen. She stared at Jianchen, who was just inches away from her, in an extremely complicated manner. She could not help but think of the first time she had met Jianchen, as well as the scenes of their interactions in the training space of Mercenary City. It was the first time that Jianchen had been looked at by Huang Wan like this. He could not help but feel a little uncomfortable. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Miss Huang Wan, are you all right?" Just as Jianchen finished speaking, Huang Wan suddenly opened her arms and hugged Jianchen tightly. She pressed her entire body against Jianchen. Although her arms were slender, they were very strong. She wrapped her arms around Jianchen's body and hugged Jianchen tightly. Jianchen immediately became stunned by the sudden change. Jianchen actually failed to react to Huang Wan's bold actions for a moment. From what he knew, although he had spent some time with Huang Wan in the past, their relationship had never reached such a level of intimacy. However, Jianchen immediately reacted. His mind became a mess when he sensed the delicate body and the arms that hugged him tightly. Huang Wan's sudden embrace left Jianchen at a loss. He was completely unprepared. He had no idea what to do. "Miss Huang Wan, this..." Jianchen stammered. He wanted to say something, but he suddenly realized that he did not know what to say. In particular, the firm and soft feeling from his chest made Jianchen's heart beat faster than it had ever been. "Jianchen, I just want to hug you. Let me hug you for a while, okay?" Huang Wan's voice came into Jianchen's ears. It was as soft as a mosquito's buzz. The vigorous fragrance that she exhaled gently blew on Jianchen's ears, making Jianchen's ears feel numb and itchy. Jianchen took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He sorted out his thoughts and finally said a complete sentence. Miss Huang Wan, what happened to you? This time he did not get any response. Huang Wan's arms hugged Jianqin tightly. Her entire body seemed to be completely attached to Jianqin. Her head leaned on Jianqin's shoulder, and she gently closed her eyes. Her entire mind was completely immersed in this wonderful feeling that she had never experienced before. She quietly enjoyed this happiness that came from the depths of her soul and even her mind. In Huang Wan's mind, the scenes that happened with Jianqin in the past kept appearing. She remembered that was the first time the two of them met. You stinking pervert, you actually peeked at me bathing. I'll definitely kill you. Wait, miss, that was a complete misunderstanding. I didn't mean to peek at Miss bathing. She remembered that it was in the training space of Mercenary City. Stinking pervert, if you're a man, don't jump around there. If I don't dodge, should I just stand there and let you shoot at me? I'm not that stupid. She remembered that it was during the battle with Sir Xian Gran. Stinking pervert, help me deal with them, and I'll write off what happened between us. She remembered that Jianqin was knocked into the ground by Sir Xiangran's Treasure Mountain seal. Damn hooligan, why are you so stupid? Didn't I tell you to run? Why are you still standing there like a fool? You're so stupid. You deserve to die. She remembered that when the two of them were about to separate. Don't tell me you don't want to know my name. If you don't tell me, how would I know? Don't tell me you don't know how to ask. Even now. She still clearly remembered that when she was separated from Jianqin, she felt an indescribable sense of loss. She also remembered the joy she felt when Jianqin used various reasons to stay behind. Back then, in Huang Wan's heart, she hated the person who saw her body for the first time to the bone. She wanted nothing more than to peel off his skin, pull out his tendons, drink his blood, and eat his flesh. Because it was the first time her jade body was seen by a man, and a weak and unfamiliar man at that, Huang Wan had a very deep impression of him. Even after she returned to the Huang family's manor, she still couldn't forget this matter. However, at that time, she only felt hatred for Jianqin. Later, when she participated in the mercenary tournament, she unexpectedly met Jianqin again in the first elimination round. Although she was very surprised by Jianqin's sudden increase in strength, she still felt hatred for Jianqin. Her hatred had not lessened in the slightest compared to before. Because of this, the two of them even fought a great battle. But afterwards, Sir Xiangran's sudden arrival caused her to fall into a predicament. At that time, in order to protect her ruler armament, she could only helplessly ask Jianqin for help. Although she did not believe that Jianqin could help her escape, she was already under the combined attack of Sir Xiangran and several other experts at that time. It was already hopeless for her to escape. Other than that, she had no other choice. She could only treat this as a last resort. However, at that time, although Jianqin was injured, his battle strength was already very strong. It was completely beyond her expectations. In just a few exchanges, he killed several Earth Saint Masters by Sir Xiangran's side, greatly reducing the pressure on her. After that, the two of them worked together to block Sir Xiangran, helping each other to escape the predicament. After this incident, Huang Wan's opinion of Jianqin underwent a subtle change. Afterwards, in order to gather enough strength to deal with Sir Xiangran, the two of them had no other choice but to walk together until the end of the competition. And during the time that she spent with Jianqin, Huang Wan's understanding of Jianqin also deepened little by little. Whether it was Jianqin's aura, appearance, or character, they were all impeccable. Moreover, he was so strong. All of the above situations caused Huang Wan's opinion of Jianqin to slowly change. She gradually abandoned the hatred she had for Jianqin in her heart. After all, the awkward scene that happened when the two of them first met was indeed just a coincidence. Jianqin had a handsome face that could make all the girls in the world infatuated with him. Coupled with his natural and unrestrained character, extraordinary talent, great strength, a brave mind that was not afraid of trouble, and iron-willed means, all of these superior qualities were gathered in one body. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was the Prince Charming in the hearts of all the girls in the world. After Huang Wan let go of the prejudice she had for Jianqin, she also discovered the various advantages of Jianqin. As a result, in the days that she spent with Jianqin, she also unknowingly imprinted Jianqin's figure in the depths of her sea of love. It was just that at that time, Huang Wan's feelings were not clear. Only when the two of them separated after the end of the mercenary tournament did the feeling gradually appear in Huang Wan's heart. In particular, when she returned to the Huang family alone, the feeling would become even more intense. In the end, it could even affect her consciousness and control her thoughts. At the same time, she would often think back to the times she had spent with Jianqin in the past. Chapter 5:21. Huang Wan hugged Jianqin tightly. She only quietly enjoyed this rare warmth. She did not say anything. The longing and emotions that had been buried in her heart for a long time finally erupted. It was like a suppressed volcano had suddenly erupted. It was abnormally fierce and difficult to suppress. Jianqin also became dumbstruck. His body stiffened like a statue, and he did not move for a long time. Today was the first time he had been hugged by a girl. It was the first time he had felt the embrace of a girl. Moreover, this was a beauty that could cause the downfall of nations. Time passed quietly in this strange and ambiguous silence. Good times were always short, and even the most wonderful moments would eventually come to an end. Jianqin and Huang Wan leaned against each other for an unknown amount of time. Finally, Huang Wan let go of Jianqin's arms. She slowly stood up straight and quickly glanced at Jianqin with some embarrassment. Afterwards, she lowered her head and gently and slowly tidied up her slightly messy clothes. Her cheeks were bright red, completely displaying the shyness of a little girl. Her appearance stunned Jianqin. Ever since Jianqin had known Huang Wan, the feeling she gave Jianqin was that she was either ice-cold or silent. He had never seen Huang Wan act like a little girl before. Is this still the Huang Wan I knew before? Jianqin could not help but ask himself. From what he knew, the Huang Wan before him was completely different from the Huang Wan he had met before. Jianqin sucked in a deep breath and smelled the faint fragrance from Huang Wan. He became intoxicated once again. The fragrance and the young girl throwing herself into his arms was a combination that could intoxicate men. If it were not for the fact that Jianqin had reached the level of a heaven saint master and had a powerful will and a firm will, he probably would have lost control of himself. Jianqin slowly calmed himself down. His gaze was also somewhat complicated as he looked at Huang Wan, who was right in front of him. After a moment of hesitation, he asked, "Miss Huang Wan, are you all right?" Huang Wan gently shook her head and slowly raised her head to look at Jianqin. After this period of recovery, her expression had returned to normal. Although her cheeks were still a little pink, it made her seem even more charming. Looking at the handsome face that was filled with determination, Huang Wan's gaze gradually became a little blurred. Compared to half a year ago, this face possessed an even more masculine aura. Jianqin felt his hair stand on end from Huang Wan's gaze. He subconsciously avoided it, as if he was afraid of this gaze. Jianqin was not a 3-year-old child who did not know anything. Obviously, he could tell something from Huang Wan's gaze. However, this made him feel extremely troubled. This was because the burden on his shoulders was just too heavy. Although Jianqin seemed to be extremely glorious on the surface, not only was he a heaven saint master, but he was also the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. However, only Jianqin himself understood just how great the pressure he would face in the future would be. Right now, he only wanted to focus all of his energy on increasing his strength. He did not plan on thinking about relationships at all. "Jianqin, it's already been half a year since we parted in Mercenary City. Have you thought about me?" Huang Wan gently looked at Jianqin as she softly asked. Huang Wan was clearly much more straightforward when it came to matters of the heart. She did not beat around the bush and was bold in her actions. She possessed a rather chivalrous demeanor, completely different from Yu's reserved nature. The two of them had completely different personalities. Jianchen did not think that Huang Wan would ask such a question. He was immediately stunned for a moment. Huang Wan suddenly became passionate, causing Jianchen, who was used to her cold demeanor, to feel very uncomfortable. However, Jianchen returned to his senses very soon. He said rather blankly, "I have." Huang Wan happily smiled when she heard that. However, she did not know that Jianchen's words were completely different from what she was thinking. This was because when Jianchen said that he had thought about her, he was only thinking about the past from time to time. He did not miss her. However, this smile did not last for long. Huang Wan's expression suddenly became gloomy. Her expression was filled with deep sorrow and sadness. Looking at Huang Wan's expression and recalling her abnormal behavior just now, Jianchen's heart sank slightly. He had already realized that Huang Wan had most likely encountered some kind of trouble or difficulty. "Miss Huang Wan, are you all right?" Jianchen asked again. Previously, when Huang Wan took the initiative to hug Jianchen, Jianchen had a strange feeling in his heart. At this moment, when he saw Huang Wan's worried expression, his heart inexplicably tightened. Now, even Jianchen himself could not say for sure whether this was out of concern for Huang Wan. Huang Wan glanced longingly at Jianchen's handsome and masculine face, as well as the chest she had just hugged. She gently sighed and slowly returned to the window. With her back to Jianchen, she stared at the scenery outside in a daze. The moment Huang Wan turned around, Jianchen could clearly see a clear teardrop roll down from the corner of her eye. Jianchen's mood became heavy for some reason. For some reason, Huang Wan's appearance made his heart ache slightly. Vaguely, he could sense that something bad was about to happen to Huang Wan. After a long while, Huang Wan finally said, "Jianchen, did you know that my father has already betrothed me to the second young master of the Huanggu clan?" Huang Wan's voice was weak and filled with pain. She even seemed to be on the verge of tears. Jianchen's face changed slightly with that. Although no girl had managed to break into Jianchen's heart yet, Jianchen's heart still became rather heavy when he heard Huang Wan's words. Perhaps because he could tell Huang Wan's feelings for him, Jianchen felt a strange feeling. He really did not want such a beautiful girl to marry someone she did not love. Jianchen calmed himself down and said, "The Huanggu clan? Is it a peak clan that's no weaker than your Huang family?" The Huanggu clan's strength is similar to our Huang family. Our Huang family, as well as the Shi family, Jetta clan, and Duga clan that you've met before, are all hermit clans. Hermit clans have at least several thousand years of history on the Tianyuan continent. They've always had a saint ruler as a hermit. They're extremely powerful, Huang Wan said softly. Hermit clans? Are they all hermit clans as long as they have a saint ruler? Jianchen asked curiously. Not all of them. Hermit families are different from the families in the outside world. Families that can be called hermit families are almost always in a semi-hermit state. They rarely come in contact with the outside world. Only such families are called hermit families. For example, my Huang family is entrenched deep in the mountains all year round. Very few of our family's disciples come out to the outside world. As a result, only a few people in the outside world know of our Huang family's existence. The rest of the hermit families are like this. I've already heard about the Saint Ruler's skeleton from Uncle Feng and Uncle Yin. If it weren't for the Heaven Saint Master from the Chang'an Kingdom finding our Huang family and divulging the Saint Ruler's skeleton, our Huang family definitely wouldn't have appeared in the outside world unless something major happened. In the outside world, there are many clans and organizations that are more powerful than our Huang family and the majority of the hermit clans. For example, the 8 great kingdoms and 3 empires of the Tianyuan continent, as well as many renowned ancient clans. They're all stronger than our hermit clans, but they only live in seclusion. Among the hermit clans, only an extremely small number of powerful clans can stand up to the 8 great kingdoms and the ancient clans. As for the three empires, probably only the ancient clans that have existed for even longer and have an even greater heritage can stand up to them. Jianqin gained a deeper understanding of the hermit clan's strength from what Huang Wan had said. However, he never thought that there would be ancient clans that were even more powerful than the hermit clans. Just how powerful are the ancient clans? Jianqin's curiosity was piqued. I don't know, Huang Luan softly said. I've only read about the ancient clans in the records of the Huang family. I've never heard anyone mention them before. I only know that the ancient clans are huge clans that have existed for tens of thousands of years. Although they exist on the Tianyuan continent, no one knows where they are. However, the records say that unless something major happens on the Tianyuan continent, the ancient clans will not appear on the Tianyuan continent. They are a group of true hermit clans. I never thought that the waters of the Tianyuan continent would be so deep, Jianqin softly muttered to himself. His opinion of the Tianyuan continent had undergone a drastic change. As his strength continued to increase, his domain also continued to expand. Thinking back when he was still in Wake City, hunting magical beasts for monster cores to cultivate, Great Saint Masters were already extremely rare in that small third-grade city. As for Earth Saint Masters, they were peerless experts. In a place like Wake City, they had the ability to call the wind and summon the rain. As for Heaven Saint Masters, whether it was in the Blue Wind Kingdom or the Kingdom of Jesson, they were lofty existences that were akin to gods. They represented the peak of a kingdom's strength. In times of war, Heaven Saint Masters were even the pillars of support for an army of millions. Now that he had come into contact with a large clan like the Huang family, Jianqin felt as if he had stepped into an even higher realm. The peak of power was no longer Heaven Saint Masters, but supreme saint rulers who had comprehended the mysteries of the world. As for Heaven Saint Masters, they could only be considered as a middle power. Jianqin lowered his head in thought for a while before saying, Miss Huang Wan, I've already understood the current predicament of your Huang family from your ancestor. Your marriage with the Huanggu clan must be for the sake of pulling them to your side. You've guessed correctly. Although our Huang family seems to be peaceful, only the true core disciples know what kind of predicament our Huang family is currently in. If we don't find a strong external aid, I'm afraid our Huang family won't be able to survive for long. The grudges between us and the Hongfu clan have accumulated from generation to generation until today. The depth of the hatred has long since reached the point where it can't be resolved. Between our two families, only one is destined to survive. Right now, the Hongfu clan is so powerful that they've completely suppressed our Huang family. Only by joining forces with the Huanggu clan can we intimidate the Hongfu clan and prevent them from acting recklessly. As for me, I'll be the only gift we can offer to the Huanggu clan, said Huang Wan. Jianqin remained silent for quite a while after Huang Wan finished speaking. He stood there hesitating for a very long time. The light in his eyes flickered as if he was struggling with something. A while later, Jianqin made up his mind. He finally made up his mind and said, If I can find a powerful ally for the Huang family, does that mean I can break off your marriage with the Huanggu clan? Huang Wan trembled violently. She slowly turned around and arrived before Jianqin. She could not help but smile faintly when she saw how serious Jianqin was. However, her smile was so helpless and miserable. Jianqin, I know that you are the imperial protector of the Qin Huang kingdom. You must have just become the imperial protector of the Qin Huang kingdom, so your position is not stable. This matter is not only approved by father, but also by grandfather. You and I can't stop it at all. It's better if you don't get involved. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll cause trouble for the Qin Huang kingdom. Moreover, the other rulers of the Qin Huang kingdom will definitely not agree with you. Chapter 5:22. Jianqin's gaze became even more determined. He said seriously, Huang Wan, don't worry. I, Jianqin, will do everything I can to help you. I won't let you marry someone you don't like. Jianqin said firmly. His will was extremely firm, and his voice was filled with conviction. Huang Wan's heart immediately warmed up when she heard what Jianqin said. She was overjoyed. In the end, she could not help but hug Jianqin tightly again as she sobbed gently. She wept silently as tears of joy flowed down her cheeks. Jianqin, I'm very satisfied with your words. So you still have me in your heart, right? Huang Wan said softly with a sobbing tone. Her gentle and pleasant voice was filled with emotion. Jianqin said nothing. He allowed Huang Wan to hug him again because he found it difficult to answer this question. He had never considered matters of the heart. Huang Wan continued. Jianqin, the marriage between our Huang family and the Huanggu clan can't be changed anymore. It's best if you don't waste your energy because it's useless. The Qin Empire won't support you. Huang Wan's voice was filled with sorrow. The two of them seemed like a pair of lovebirds that were about to be forcefully separated. They were currently trying their best to resist. Jianqin gently broke free from Huang Wan's embrace and said, This matter hasn't reached the point of no return yet. Don't worry. I'll do everything I can to help you break free. I'll go talk to your ancestor right now. With that, Jianqin turned around and left without any hesitation. He walked out of Huang Wan's pavilion. Huang Wan did not stop him. She stared blankly at Jianqin's figure that had already vanished. Her eyes were filled with gentleness as tears constantly flowed from her eyes, slowly rolling down her beautiful face. Jianqin did not stay in Huang Wan's pavilion for very long, no more than an hour. However, when he walked out of the pavilion, the two of them had already vanished. He had no idea where they had gone. A middle-aged man in a white robe walked towards Huang Wan's loft. When he saw Jianqin standing in front of the loft, he spoke from a distance. You must be the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, right? The middle-aged man smiled warmly and spoke in a very friendly tone. Jianqin looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was only an Earth Saint Master, but he possessed an imposing appearance. He seemed dignified, and every movement he made gave off a sense of dominance. Although the middle-aged man was only an Earth Saint Master, Jianqin did not underestimate him. He politely clasped his hands and smiled. This one is Jianqin. Seeing that Jianqin, the Qin Empire's imperial protector, was so polite to an Earth Saint Master, the middle-aged man looked at Jianqin with praise. The smile on his face became even more cordial as he clasped his hands. This one is the current patriarch of the Huang family, Huang Qinglan. Luan is my daughter. Speaking of which, Luan once had some grudges with the imperial protector. Hearing that the middle-aged man was actually Huang Wan's father, Jianqin's eyes flashed with surprise. However, he quickly returned to normal and smiled, so it was the patriarch of the Huang family. Nice to meet you, nice to meet you. Imperial protector, the previous two patriarchs of the Huang family were my grandfather. However, he is currently in seclusion in the back mountains, so he is unable to receive you. If there is any neglect, please forgive me. I will now bring the Imperial Protector to the Chui Yun Pavilion. We have already prepared a banquet. The other 5 esteemed guests of the Qin Empire are also there, waiting for the Imperial Protector's arrival, Huang Qinglan said with a smile. Jianqin hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. Patriarch, I am truly sorry. This one has an important matter to discuss with a senior at the peak of the back mountains. I will not be able to accompany the patriarch. Please forgive me. Hearing that it was a senior at the peak of the back mountains, Huang Qinglan immediately thought of the Huang family's ancestor. He immediately felt deep veneration and said seriously, If that is the case, then I will not delay the imperial protector any longer. Farewell. Jianqin did not say anything else. He rose from the ground and flew off into the distance. Seeing Jianqin disappear into the sky, Huang Qinglan's eyes were filled with unconcealable envy. He muttered to himself, I never thought that Jianqin would reach the realm of Heaven Saint Master at such a young age. How enviable. After sighing, Huang Qinglan walked towards the small building in front of him. But when he passed by the place where Jianqin had been standing, he paused. He sniffed the lingering fragrance in the air and sighed. This is the smell of orchid fragrance. I never thought that Luan would actually use orchid fragrance on Jianqin. Sigh. Huang Qinglan's face was filled with helplessness. Orchid fragrance was only a type of perfume. It was not very famous on the Tianyuan continent because it was only circulated among girls. In the hearts of girls, orchid fragrance was a sacred flower that symbolized pure love. A girl could only use it once in her life, but this one time, she would only use it on the man she truly loved. It meant that she had already fallen in love with this person, and this would not change her mind for the rest of her life. Once a girl used orchid fragrance on a man, it meant that she had already decided to give everything to this man, including her chastity. This was because orchid fragrance contained a natural medicine that could bewitch a person's mind to a certain extent and evoke their most primitive desires. Huang Qinglan had never thought that his girl would be willing to use orchid fragrance for Jianqin after spending such a short amount of time with Jianqin. This had indeed exceeded his expectations. All Huang Qinglan could do was sigh. Jianqin was indeed very outstanding. So outstanding that Huang Qinglan could not find anything wrong with him. He was just so perfect. However, the Huang family was facing a crisis right now. As the only sacrifice to rope in the Huanggu clan, Huang Wan had no right to choose her own love. Huang Qinglan entered the small loft and went straight to the second floor. Smelling the orchid fragrance that filled the entire room, he shook his head helplessly again. Then his gaze fell on his daughter's tear-stained face, and he felt a wave of sadness in his heart. Luaner. Huang Qinglan opened his mouth. He wanted to say something to comfort his daughter, but he had no idea what to say as soon as he opened his mouth. Huang Wan used a yellow handkerchief to wipe away the tears on her face. She turned her back to Huang Qinglan and said, "Father, I want to be alone for a while." Huang Qinglan sighed inside when he saw how cold Huang Wan was. He said, "Luan, I know you already have Jianqin in your heart." "That's right. Jianqin really is outstanding. Aside from his background, he's no worse than the second young master of the Huanggu clan in any other aspect. Normally, I would be very happy for you to marry Jianqin, but you know the situation our Huang family is in right now. We have no choice but to do this." Seeing how his daughter remained silent, the middle-aged man did not want to stay in the room filled with orchid fragrance any longer. He said, "Luan, I won't disturb you anymore. Have some time alone." Jianqin returned to the mountain where the ancestor of the Huang family resided. He clasped his hands at the wooden hut and said, "Senior, I have something to discuss with you. Come in." The ancestor's indifferent voice rang out from the hut. Jianqin strode into the hut. The ancestor of the Huang family currently sat on a piece of jade in the narrow and crude hut. He smiled at Jianqin. "Jianqin, may I ask what you have to discuss with the old man? Have you changed your mind and are willing to assist our Huang family with the strength of the Qin Empire?" The ancestor of the Huang family spoke very calmly. "Senior, you must be joking. This matter is of great importance. I cannot represent the Qin Empire. Even if I agree, the other imperial protector of the Qin Empire will probably object," Jianqin said. "Then why have you come?" The ancestor of the Huang family asked. "Senior, I may not be able to get the Qin Empire to assist the Huang family, but I can find other experts to help. However, the condition is to cancel the marriage between Miss Huang Wan and the Huanggu clan." Jianqin stared at the ancestor of the Huang family closely. He knew that the old man before him held supreme authority in the Huang family. Only by convincing him could he resolve Huang Wan's problem. The ancestor of the Huang family frowned slightly. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "Jianqin, the marriage between our Huang family and the Huanggu clan has already been decided. At the same time, Huang Wan's talent is extraordinary. She has reached Earth Saint Master at the age of 20. She is a rare genius in our Huang family, so the Huanggu clan is very fond of her. They even tried everything they could to get Huang Yuan to marry them. Now that the marriage has finally been decided, the Huanggu clan has been overjoyed for quite a while. Canceling the marriage is easier said than done, and doing this will destroy the friendship between our Huang family and the Huanggu clan. Jianqin's face changed slightly. He hurriedly said, "Senior, what do you want in order to cancel the marriage?" The ancestor of the Huang family suddenly laughed when he saw how nervous Jianqin was. He said, "Jianqin, have you taken a fancy to Huang Yuan? Do you plan on marrying her? If you marry our Huang family as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, I, the old man, will approve of it very much." Jianqin dryly laughed. "Senior, please don't joke with me. This matter involves far too many things. The Qin Empire won't interfere at all." The ancestor became disappointed. He said, "Sai, Jianqin, old man, let's just be straightforward. Our Huang family and the Huanggu clan have been friends for several hundred years. If we cancel the marriage, it will definitely destroy our relationship with the Huanggu clan. You may be able to find another expert for our Huang family, but we still won't do that unless you can find someone as powerful as the Qin Empire. Only then will we be willing to take the risk." Jianqin hesitated before replying, "Senior, I don't know how powerful that expert is, but he definitely won't be any weaker than the Huanggu clan." Then, what heavenly layer of saint ruler has he reached? A gleam of light flickered through the ancestor's eyes. He cared about this very much. "I don't know," Jianqin replied innocently. Hearing that, the ancestor of the Huang family was disappointed once again. However, before long, Jianqin's next sentence caused his expression to freeze. "I only know that the senior reached the Saint King realm 5,000 years ago." "What? He reached Saint Ruler 5,000 years ago?" The Huang clan's ancestor could no longer maintain his composure. He jumped up from the jade stone with a shocked expression on his face. "That's right. He did reach Saint Ruler 5,000 years ago," Jianqin said. However, the ancestor's abnormal behavior made Jianqin's mind become lively. The ancestor stared at Jianqin nervously. He asked with a trembling voice, H, he's still alive?" Chapter 5:23. The ancestor of the Huang family suddenly became extremely emotional. Perhaps because he was overly emotional, his face became completely red. It was difficult to imagine that a mighty saint ruler would lose his composure like this. "Jianqin, if you can really get this senior to come help our Huang family, then we'll do our best to satisfy you no matter what you ask of us." The ancestor of the Huang family grabbed Jianqin's shoulder tightly and said passionately, "Senior, don't worry. This time, I'll do whatever it takes to get this expert here. When the time comes, I hope you can annul the engagement with Huang Yuan," Jianqin said seriously. No problem. As long as the senior is willing to help our Huang family, even if we annul the engagement with the Huanggu clan, the Huanggu clan won't even dare to fart." The ancestor of the Huang family agreed readily. At that moment, he did not hesitate at all. He did not even consider whether he would offend the Huanggu clan because of this. However, the ancestor of the Huang family seemed to think of something soon. He said rather unnaturally, "However, Jianqin, you have to let me see this senior first. I'll only do this if this senior agrees to it in front of me." "All right, I'll go and get this senior right now." After leaving the mountain where the ancestor cultivated, Jianqin returned to the manor of the Huang family. He arrived before Huang Yuan's pavilion and directly went up to the second floor. The fragrance of orchids still lingered in the room. Just a whiff was enough to intoxicate people. However, Jianqin did not know that this was the fragrance of orchids or what it meant. Huang Yuan seemed to know that it was Jianqin when she heard the footsteps behind her. She suddenly turned around and looked at Jianqin expectantly and affectionately. 2 streaks of dried tears remained on her face, making her seem quite pitiful. you're back. Have you thought of something? Huang Wan asked eagerly, even though she was very reluctant to see Jianqin make the people in charge of the Qin Empire unhappy because of her. She still looked forward to it. I've already convinced your great-grandfather. Your great-grandfather has promised me that if I can find someone even more powerful than the Huanggu clan, he'll annul the engagement, said Jianqin. Huang Wan was completely moved by Jianqin's words. Huang Wan arrived before Jianqin and asked worriedly, will the Qin Empire not support you? If the Qin Empire gets involved, you'll offend several saint rulers and even the Huanggu clan. Jianqin chuckled. I'm not that stupid. Don't worry, I won't let the Qin Empire get involved because I don't want to cause too much trouble for the Qin Empire. However, I'm not completely confident that I'll be able to get that senior to come out. Anyway, I'll do my best. I've actually come this time to bid farewell to you. In order to free you as soon as possible, I need to return immediately. Then you have to take care of yourself. Huang Wan's heart constantly trembled. She had truly been moved by Jianqin at that moment. Jianqin nodded. Without saying anything else, he turned around and left. Afterwards, Jianqin found Xiaotian's group of 5, who were chatting with the upper echelons of the Huang family. He directly pulled them out of the table and bid farewell to the patriarch of the Huang family before leaving in a hurry. Qing Xiaofan looked at Jianqin meaningfully as he smelled the orchid fragrance on Jianqin. He snickered. Imperial Protector, why do you smell so good? Did you do something bad in the Huang family, which is why you left in such a hurry? Jianqin had a lot on his mind, so he was in no mood to joke around with them. He said nonchalantly, I had something urgent to attend to, so I left in a hurry. Xiaotian's group of 5 lost their mood to joke when they saw how serious Jianqin was. They all became stern. Xiaotian asked, Imperial Protector, what's made you so anxious? It's not a big deal, but it's not a small one either. In short, it's important and is a personal matter, Jianqin explained vaguely. Xiaotian's group of 5 could tell that Jianqin didn't want to tell them anything, so they didn't continue to ask and focused on their journey. The 6 of them stared at the fierce wind as they flew thousands of meters high in the sky. Below their feet was a vast expanse of white clouds that connected the sky and the earth. They couldn't see the end of it and could only see the fiery, red setting sun on the horizon that was about to set. 2 days later, they finally returned to the kingdom of Jessen. Jianqin found a random river to wash his body and get rid of the lingering fragrance on his body. He then changed into a clean set of white robes and returned to Changyang Prefecture. Greetings, 4th young master. There was practically no one in Changyang Prefecture who didn't know Jianqin. All the guards and servants who saw Jianqin all bowed respectfully to Jianqin. After returning to Changyang Prefecture, Jianqin didn't go to see his parents. Instead, he went straight to where Mingdong was resting. Xiaotian's group of 5 had completed their mission, so they didn't continue to follow Jianqin. They all dispersed. Jianqin, when did you come back? Jianqin's sudden visit surprised Mingdong. He was overjoyed, but when he saw Jianqin's heavy expression, his expression changed slightly. He said, Jianqin, that Huang family didn't make things difficult for you, did they? In Mingdong's heart, Jianqin was a friend who had gone through life and death with him. He was the closest and most trustworthy friend he had ever had in his life. He would never allow Jianqin to be wronged in the slightest. Jianqin gently shook his head. He walked straight to the table and sat down. He personally poured a cup of tea and drank it. He said solemnly, Jianqin, there's something I need your help with. Mingdong walked over to Jianqin and sat down. He frowned slightly and said with some dissatisfaction, Jianqin, do you still treat me as a brother? How dare you speak to me in such a tone? If there's anything you need, just say it. Don't be so wishy-washy like a stranger. As long as it's something you need, whether it's climbing a mountain of blades or diving into a sea of flames, I, Jianqin, will not shirk away. Jianqin smiled apologetically. He didn't waste any words and directly stated his intentions. Mingdong, I hope that your Uncle Tian will step in and help me settle a matter. Mingdong seemed to sense the severity of the matter when he heard that Jianqin actually wanted his Uncle Tian to step in. His expression could not help but become solemn. Next, Jianqin told Mingdong about the Huang family and Huang Wan in detail. He did not hide anything. Jianqin's solemn expression immediately relaxed after hearing that. He stared meaningfully at Jianqin and chuckled evilly. I was wondering what it was. So it was like this. Jianqin, you're making such a big fuss over a girl you've met a few times in the past. Don't tell me you've taken a fancy to her? Jianqin dryly smiled. It's not as complicated as you make it sound. We've spent some time with Huang Wan in Mercenary City, no matter what. I don't want to see her marry someone she doesn't like. Hee, Jianqin, there's no need to be embarrassed. Polygamy is very common on the Tianyuan continent. For example, your father has 4 wives, right? With your abilities and appearance, if you don't find a few more women, you'll be letting down your face that even makes me jealous. Mingdong teased. Jianqin changed the topic. Mingdong, can you get your Uncle Tian to step in? I really can't think of anyone else other than your Uncle Tian. There were indeed quite a few saint rulers among the people Jianqin had interacted with. Aside from the 4 other imperial protector of the Qin Empire, only Longevity Valley's Uncle Xiao and Mingdong's Uncle Tian had some connections. The 4 imperial protector of the Qin Empire represented the Qin Empire, so they could not interfere at all. They could be directly excluded. Jianqin knew that Uncle Xiao was a saint ruler at the very least, but Uncle Xiao had already lived in seclusion for many years. Jianqin did not want to disturb Uncle Xiao's peaceful life and make trouble for him, so he did not consider Uncle Xiao. At the same time, Uncle Xiao's exact strength was unknown. Jianqin had no idea whether Uncle Xiao could deal with the situation or not. In the end, there was only Mingdong's Uncle Tian left. Jianqin had been extremely shocked when he first saw Mingdong's Uncle Tian. He had a heaven saint master as a servant and occupied a floating divine hall all by himself. He was also the master of the divine hall. Even the saint rulers of the sect of Dragon and Tiger and the imperial family did not possess such extravagance. Most importantly, Mingdong's Uncle Tian had become a saint ruler 5,000 years ago. Just how terrifying had his strength reached 5,000 years later? However, one thing was certain. Mingdong's Uncle Tian's talent was extraordinary. He definitely would not have remained stagnant for 5,000 years. Moreover, Mingdong's Uncle Tian seemed to be a member of Mercenary City. Although being a mercenary was a free occupation, Jianqin understood something after seeing Mercenary City. Although being a mercenary was an extremely free occupation on the Tianyuan continent, Mercenary City was a rather large organization. All the elders, there were saint rulers, and there were quite a few of them. At the same time, they maintained a friendly relationship with saint rulers like the Heavenly Enchantress and the other idol saint rulers. Jianqin understood from all of this that Mercenary City was an extremely large organization. After all, it was personally founded by Mo Tianyin, who had once been the greatest expert on the continent. Jianqin, I've said it before, as long as it's related to you, I'm willing to climb a mountain of blades or plunge into a sea of flames. As he said that, Mingdong took out a jade pendant from his chest and said, "This was given to me by my Uncle Tian. He told me that if I ran into any problems that I couldn't solve, all I had to do was channel my saint force into this pendant and I would inform my Uncle Tian." Mingdong grabbed the jade pendant tightly as saint force constantly flowed into it. After absorbing the saint force, the ordinary-looking jade began to shine with a faint light. "Mingdong, where is your Uncle Tian right now?" Jianqin asked curiously. "He should be in Mercenary City. Ever since you entered the sacred land, I came with my Uncle Tian. Afterwards, my Uncle Tian took my parents to Mercenary City, but I didn't go back with them. Instead, I stayed in the kingdom of Jessen and completed the mission you gave me. I've been here ever since, said Mingdong. Jianchen pointed at the jade pendant in Mingdong's hand and said, Mercenary City is extremely far away from here. Will this really work? Mingdong smiled complacently. Don't worry, Jianchen. You don't know about my Uncle Tian's departure, but I believe he won't lie to me. As soon as Mingdong finished speaking, the space before them began to violently tremble. However, before the two of them could return to their senses, a spatial crack suddenly appeared, expanding into a space gate in a single moment. Through the space gate, they could see a majestic hall inside. Afterward, under Jianchen's stunned gaze, a white-robed, middle-aged man walked out of the space gate. The middle-aged man seemed extremely ordinary. He did not give off any pulses of energy, yet he could hover in the air. He seemed like a god. Chapter 5:24. Jianchen became stunned when he saw the middle-aged man appear before him. Jianchen was extremely shocked by how Mingdong's uncle had arrived. They were several 100,000 kilometers, or even over 1,000,000 kilometers away from Mercenary City. Yet only a few seconds had passed since Mingdong had taken out the jade pendant. Jianchen had never thought that Mingdong's uncle would arrive so quickly. What surprised Jianchen even more was that Mingdong's uncle seemed to have torn through space and appeared in the room with great precision. His position was so precise that even Jianchen found it hard to believe. This was because, even with a space gate, it was impossible for him to move so quickly. The space gate behind the middle-aged man slowly vanished, and the space there returned to normal. No one could tell that there had been a space gate there earlier. The middle-aged man did not give off any pulses of energy at all. On the surface, he seemed like an extremely ordinary person. There was nothing special about him, but he could hover in the air like a god. Uncle Tian, I never thought you'd come so quickly. The jade pendant you gave me sure is useful. Mingdong looked at the middle-aged man in excitement. His voice was filled with uncontainable excitement. Uncle Tian held an extremely important position in Mingdong's heart, just like his parents. He was the most important person because his current accomplishments were all thanks to Uncle Tian. It was Uncle Tian who had changed him from an ordinary mercenary to his current state. Not only had his strength skyrocketed from a great Saint Master to a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master, but he had also grasped a heaven-tier battle skill that many people on the Tianyuan continent could only dream of. Uncle Tian slowly landed on the ground. He gently looked at Mingdong, as if he was looking at his own descendant. His eyes were filled with care and affection. He smiled and said, Child, why have you come looking for me? Uncle Tian, it's my brother, Jianchen. I need your help with something, said Mingdong. A gentle smile hung on Uncle Tian's face as he looked towards Jianchen. However, just as his gaze landed on Jianchen, a gleam of light immediately flashed through his eyes. With a soft cry of surprise, his face was filled with shock. Soon after, 2 golden rays of light shot out from his eyes, directly enveloping Jianchen's entire body. Just when Jianchen wanted to say something, something unexpected happened. He felt like he was immobilized by the golden light. He had completely lost control over his body. Jianchen was shocked by the sudden change, but he calmed down very soon. He knew that Mingdong's Uncle Tian would not do anything that would harm him. However, Mingdong paled in fright when he saw what Uncle Tian had done. He cried out nervously, Uncle Tian, what are you doing? Before Mingdong could finish, Uncle Tian raised his hand to stop him. He said indifferently, Don't worry. I'm just checking on his current condition. I won't harm him. Mingdong let out a sigh of relief when he heard that. He really was afraid that his uncle would do something to harm Jianchen. Very soon, the golden light around Jianchen gradually vanished. Uncle Tian's golden eyes gradually returned to normal as well. The moment the golden light vanished, Jianchen regained control over his body. Although he was not injured, Jianchen still felt cold sweat run down his back. He did not know exactly how powerful Uncle Tian was, But just that move alone was enough to make Jianchen feel fear. Uncle Tian had actually immobilized him with just a glance. His strength was just too terrifying. Uncle Tian frowned slightly as he stared at Jianchen in interest. He said with a heavy voice, "Your saint artifact has actually shattered." Jianchen was shocked once again when he heard that. Even the saint rulers of the Qin Empire and the ancestor of the Huang family, who had come into close contact with him, had failed to discover the secret of his shattered saint artifact. However, Jianchen's Uncle Tian had actually seen through his greatest secret with a single glance. How could Jianchen not be shocked? As a matter of fact, Jianchen even had an exaggerated notion that he had no secrets at all before Mingdong's Uncle Tian. Jianchen became respectful. He clasped his hands. "Junior, Jianchen greets Senior. Senior's guess is correct. Junior's saint artifact has indeed shattered." "A miracle, a miracle. Although your saint artifact has shattered, your consciousness seems to have become even more powerful. Even my heaven's eye is unable to see through it. You've probably come across some sort of fortuitous encounter," said Uncle Tian. Jianchen was surprised once again by Uncle Tian's words. He never thought that Uncle Tian would be able to see through the strength of his consciousness with a single glance. However, what made him feel slightly relieved was that Uncle Tian did not seem to have discovered the secret of the sword spirits. "It's just as Senior has said. Junior has indeed come across some fortuitous encounters, which is why Junior was able to retain his strength even after his saint artifact shattered," said Jianchen politely. Uncle Tian nodded slightly. He stared at Jianchen with brimming eyes for a while before furrowing his brows in thought. He said, "With the strength of your consciousness, you should already be able to control the energy of the world. I never thought that you would reach such a level in just half a year. Your rate of improvement has surprised even me." Uncle Tian paused slightly before sitting down in front of the table. He said, "Let's talk about your matter then. Just what do you need my help with?" Jianchen politely said, "Senior, Junior has a matter that I hope Senior can settle." Afterwards, Jianchen told Uncle Tian about the matter of the Huang family. Uncle Tian slightly furrowed his brows after hearing that. He did not immediately agree. Jianchen panicked inside when he saw this. He was afraid that Uncle Tian would not agree. So he begged, "Uncle Tian, Jianchen is my best brother. If it weren't for Jianchen saving me back then, I wouldn't have been able to live until today, much less see you. Now that my brother is in trouble, you have to help him." Uncle Tian seemed to have been moved by Jianchen's words. He gently sighed and said, "Originally, I didn't want to interfere with these matters, but since Jianchen saved your life, I'll help you this time." Jianchen was overjoyed when he heard that. He clasped his hands in gratitude. "Thank you for your help, Senior." "There's no need to thank me. Jianchen, your talent is pretty good, much better than Mingdong's. I just hope that you can take care of Mingdong when I'm not around." Uncle Tian sighed gently as a sliver of helplessness flashed through his eyes. "Senior, Junior, and Mingdong are like brothers. Even if you didn't say that, Junior would have done it," Jianchen said seriously. However, Mingdong was displeased by Uncle Tian's words. He grumbled, "Uncle Tian, why are you treating me like a child?" Uncle Tian smiled. "There's no time to lose. Let's go over right now and resolve this matter as soon as possible. Jianchen, where is the Huang family you mentioned?" "It's in a mountain several tens of thousand kilometers to the northwest," Jianchen said happily, now that his Uncle Tian had personally taken action. The ancestor of the Huang family would have nothing to say. Uncle Tian fell silent for a while before saying, "I've already found where the Huang family is. Let's go over right now." "Yes, Senior." Jianchen immediately made his way out. However, as soon as he took a step, he came to a halt. He stared at Uncle Tian in shock. Uncle Tian slowly raised his right hand and placed it steadily before his chest. In the next moment, the space there actually began to tremble violently. In just a few seconds, A pitch-black spatial crack silently appeared before Jianshan's eyes. The crack rapidly expanded, forming a space gate in the blink of an eye. On the other side of the space gate was a scene that Jianshan was extremely familiar with. It was actually the small wooden hut where the ancestor of the Huang family cultivated in seclusion. It should be here. Let's go over, Uncle Tian said indifferently before gently waving his other hand. Jianshan only felt like he was enveloped by an irresistible energy. He could not help but shoot into the space gate with lightning-like speed. Mingdong also left with him. After the three of them left, the space gate in the hut slowly faded away. The space returned to its normal state. The only difference was that the three of them had disappeared, and the Heaven Saint Masters of Changyang Prefecture had not sensed anything at all. The ancestor of the Huang family was not cultivating as usual on the sword-shaped peak in the back mountains of the Huang family. Instead, he sat cross-legged on a piece of jade as he pondered with a frown. A sliver of hope and urgency would appear on his face from time to time. Ever since Jianshan had left, he found it very difficult to calm down and cultivate. The phrase Saint Ruler from 5,000 years ago constantly circled around his head. As someone who had been a Saint Ruler for many years, the ancestor of the Huang family understood extremely well just how great of an existence a person who could live for 5,000 years without dying was. Even in ancient clans that had disappeared before the eyes of ordinary people, people like that were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. This was because on the Tianyuan continent, whether it was Heaven Saint Masters, Saint Rulers, or existences above Saint Ruler, none of them could escape the end of time. On the Tianyuan continent, ordinary people had a lifespan of around 200 years, while Earth Saint Masters had a lifespan of 500 years. Heaven Saint Masters could live up to 1,000 years, while Saint Rulers, who were above Heaven Saint Masters, could only live up to 3,000 years. Even ninth heavenly layer Saint Rulers could not live up to 3,200 years. Even if they consumed heavenly medicines that could extend their lifespans, it would still be very difficult to break this rule. If one wanted to live up to 5,000 years, they would need to break through to Saint Ruler. It was impossible for Saint Rulers to live that long. In the entire world, only the Holy Emperor and the Holy Emperor, who was above the Holy Emperor, could live up to 5,000 years. This was why the ancestor of the Huang family had lost his composure when he heard that Jianshan wanted to invite an expert who had become a Saint Ruler 5,000 years ago. He had even agreed to Jianshan's request in an extremely decisive manner, even going as far as to offend the Huanggu clan. It was because of this matter that the ancestor of the Huang family had been uneasy for the past 2 days. He was unable to calm down and cultivate because he was very much looking forward to Jianshan actually being able to invite such an expert to assist the Huang family. Once such an expert stood behind the Huang family would be able to hold their heads high even before ancient clans, let alone a mere hermit clan. Chapter 5:25. Looking at the space gate that had suddenly appeared in his small room, the ancestor of the Huang clan became stunned. This was because the mountain he was cultivating in was enveloped by a barrier that he had cast down, isolating it from the outside world. Even a Saint Ruler would not be able to sneak in without alerting him, let alone a space gate. Moreover, this space gate just happened to appear in his small wooden hut. However, when his gaze landed on one of the three people, Jianshan, a thought flashed through his mind. His body violently trembled as he immediately jumped up from the jade rock. He bowed with great respect. Junior Huang, Tianba greets Senior. The ancestor of the Huang clan was extremely emotional. Even his voice was trembling. Uncle Tian indifferently glanced at the ancestor of the Huang clan before looking at Jianshan and asking, "Is he the person you're talking about?" From Uncle Tian's gaze, it seemed like he did not take the ancestor of the Huang clan seriously at all, even though he was a Saint Ruler. Jianshan nodded. Seeing how respectful the ancestor of the Huang clan was, he laughed and sighed. However, his expression did not change as he said, "Senior, I've already done as you requested. I've already invited the expert over as you wished. Are you satisfied now?" The ancestor of the Huang clan's expression changed when he heard that. His high and mighty demeanor immediately turned into one of humility, as if he was afraid that he would vent his anger on this senior expert. After all, it was already extremely disrespectful for such a senior expert to personally come over to see a nobody like him. Little brother Jianqin must be joking. That was only a joke of this junior. I never thought that little brother Jianqin would actually take it seriously, making senior come all the way here. If I've offended you in any way, please forgive me, senior. The ancestor of the Huang clan panicked. Even the ancient clans would not dare to offend a monster that could live for 5,000 years, let alone the Huang clan that was far inferior to the ancient clans. Seeing the Huang family's old ancestors' groveling appearance, Uncle Tian was unmoved. His tone was indifferent as he said, "It's fine. I'm here this time to fulfill Jianqin's request and help him solve some problems. I believe that you are the key to solving this problem." Upon hearing these words, the old ancestor of the Huang family was shocked by Jianqin's power. At this moment, Jianqin's position in his heart skyrocketed. He was now someone that he could not afford to offend, no matter what. He had to try his best to rope him in. Towards the words of Uncle Tian, the old master of the Huang family did not dare to not reply. With a respectful expression, he replied, "Senior, you're being too serious with your words. This is just a small matter. There's no need for you to interfere in it. This junior here can settle it. If that's the case, then that's for the best. Although I don't like to meddle in other people's business, since I've already made a promise to Jianqin, then I'll definitely do it. I've already heard about your Huang family's worries. Take this piece of jade. When your Huang family needs my help, just crush it. I'll rush over within 3 breaths." A thumb-sized piece of white jade appeared in Uncle Tian's hand as it slowly floated before the old ancestor of the Huang family. The old ancestor of the Huang family was so excited that he could not control himself. He used both hands to receive the thumb-sized piece of white jade and said, "Thank you for your gift, senior." To be able to obtain the help of a holy emperor was too significant for the Huang family. Although there was only one chance, it was enough for the Huang family to establish their prestige. This was because this would prove that the Huang family had a close relationship with the holy emperor. The old ancestor of the Huang family looked at Uncle Tian respectfully. After a moment of hesitation, he carefully asked, "May I ask senior's name and what organization you rule over? If I come across you in the future, I would like to offer my meager assistance." "My name is Tianjian, the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. As for assistance, there's no need. At the very least, you don't have that ability right now. Let's talk about it when you reach the level of a holy emperor." Uncle Tian indifferently replied. Saint rulers were indeed nothing in his eyes. There were quite a few of them in Mercenary City. However, when the ancestor of the Huang family heard about the identity of the first elder of Mercenary City, his body became limp. He almost could not help but kneel down. Panic filled his face, and his heart almost leapt out of his chest. Soon after, his gaze towards Uncle Tian was filled with shock and disbelief. There was also some fear and dread mixed within. As a saint ruler, even though he did not belong to Mercenary City, he knew quite a lot about the city. He knew extremely well about the governance and hierarchy of authority in Mercenary City. Although Mercenary City was a city, it did not belong to any place. Their governance was different from ordinary cities. There was no city lord in Mercenary City because there was no need for law and order in Mercenary City. Even saint rulers dared not break the rule that forbade fighting in the city. The true ruler of Mercenary City was a group of elders composed of many people. This group of elders was the core of authority in Mercenary City, and the person with the highest status was the Grand Elder. Without any exaggeration, the Grand Elder was the final ruler of Mercenary City. Not only could he mobilize the power of the entire city, but he was also the person with the true authority to decide everything in Mercenary City. Other than that, the Grand Elder was also the most powerful person in Mercenary City. He was someone who truly stood at the apex of the continent, someone who stood at the very top of the pyramid. Even in his wildest dreams, the ancestor of the Huang family would have never thought that the senior that Jianqin had found would have such a great background. It was so great that he felt an inexplicable sense of fear. The ancestor of the Huang family stood there in a daze. Even though he was a saint ruler, he was still as insignificant as an ant before the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. Tianjin did not even glance at the ancestor of the Huang family. He looked at Mingdong lovingly and smiled. "Child, do you want to return to Mercenary City with Uncle? Or do you want to stay here?" "Uncle Tian, I'll stay with Brother Jianqin. I won't be going back with you," Mingdong replied without even thinking about it. "All right, you really do lack experience right now. Following Jianqin will be much better than staying in Mercenary City." Tianjin nodded in agreement. At this moment, Mingdong seemed to think of something. His eyes immediately lit up. "Uncle Tian, the Shi family, and the Jetta clan are our enemies. My brother was forced into this situation by them as well. You might as well deal with both of them together. If the experts of their clans come to deal with us, it won't be easy for the two of us to deal with them." Tianjin shook his head. "Child, you can't ask Uncle to help you deal with every problem you encounter. If Uncle is no longer here one day, how will you survive on the Tianyuan continent? Right now, you need to learn how to overcome all the problems you may face." Although he was teaching Mingdong, Tianjin's voice was extremely gentle and did not carry any sternness. He gave off the feeling of a benevolent grandfather. "Yes, Uncle Tian." Mingdong's face was filled with helplessness and disappointment. "Since the matter has been resolved, it is time for me to return to Mercenary City. Do you want to stay here or return to the kingdom of Jessen?" Tianjin continued. Mingdong did not reply. Instead, he looked at Jianqin with a questioning gaze. Jianqin pondered for a moment before replying, "Senior, let's stay here." Tianjin did not reply. He raised his hand again and tore open space. In less than 2 breaths, he created a space gate and floated away. Deep yearning filled Jianqin's eyes when he saw this. Tianjin's use of space had clearly reached a level of mastery. With this ability, he could go anywhere in the world, and there would be no need for him to waste time on traveling. However, with Jianqin's current strength, he could only yearn. Tianjin's cultivation level was so great that Jianqin could only look up to him. After all, he was a great figure that even saint rulers had to bow before. The ancestor of the Huang family stared blankly at where Tianjin had vanished. He became lost in thought and murmured, "Is this the Holy Emperor's strength? He can actually tear open space and cross over 1,000,000 kilometers with a casual move." Soon after, the old ancestor of the Huang family noticed the jade stone in his hand. His expression immediately became very excited. At this moment, in his eyes, this jade stone was 1,000,000 times more precious than any treasure in the world. There was no treasure that could be compared to this jade stone. The Huang family's ancestor took out an exquisite jade box from his space ring, then carefully placed the jade into the box like it was a precious treasure. This was because this was a treasure that could summon the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. Even though it was only a single use, it was still extremely precious because the deterrence it created was extremely great. After storing the jade away, the ancestor of the Huang family finally exhaled deeply. However, his heart was still thumping violently. It was very difficult for him to calm down. Only now did he discover to his surprise that his forehead was covered in sweat. The ancestor of the Huang family wiped away the sweat on his forehead. He stared at Jianqin and Mingdong with extremely mixed feelings. Even though Mingdong was only an Earth Saint Master, the ancestor of the Huang family had already treated him as a little ancestor. This was because he had heard Mingdong call him Uncle Tian very clearly. Jianqin chuckled when he saw how shaken the ancestor of the Huang family was. He said, "Senior, you can announce the annulment of the marriage between Miss Luan and the Huanggu clan now, right?" Chapter 5:26. Huang Luan's matter had finally been resolved. Jianqin smiled as well, but he knew that it was all thanks to Jianqin. If it were not for Ming Dong's relationship with Uncle Tian, Jianqin probably would not have been able to ask Uncle Tian to help him. However, Jianqin was extremely surprised by Uncle Tian's identity. He was the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. Although he did not know just how great of a status this was in Mercenary City, he could vaguely guess it from the Grand Elder's identity. Jianqin and Ming Dong did not stay there for too long. They left the mountain and left with the Huang family's patriarch. After what had happened earlier, the Huang family's ancestor treated Jianqin and Ming Dong completely differently. He actually personally flew with the two of them, completely forsaking his status as a saint ruler. They chatted and laughed as they made their way to the Huang family's villa. The three of them stopped before the discussion hall in the center of the villa. At the same time, many Heaven Saint Masters hurried over from all directions. They all gathered before the discussion hall, and all of them knelt down on one knee. They called out, "We greet the ancestor." Along the way, the Huang family's ancestor had informed them through a communication technique. "Rise and come with me. Old man has something to announce." With that, the Huang family's ancestor directly made his way into the discussion hall with a swing of his sleeve. The Heaven Saint Masters of the Huang family looked at each other before shifting their gazes to Jianqin. Their hearts skipped a beat as they thought of something. As a hermit clan that had existed for several thousand years, the Huang family had quite a few Heaven Saint Masters. Just the ones that Jianqin had seen so far numbered 13. However, all 13 of them held positions in the Huang family. Those who did not care about the affairs of the clan and only focused on cultivation were not present, including the two previous patriarchs that Jianqin had seen for the first time. Very soon, everyone gathered in the discussion hall. The 13 Heaven Saint Masters sat on the two sides of the hall, quietly as they respectfully looked at the Huang family's ancestor. Jianqin and Ming Dong sat at the very front under the ancestor's indication. Many of the people present already knew Jianqin's identity. As the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, he did indeed have the right to sit there. However, the fact that Ming Dong, an Earth Saint Master, was sitting in such a high position puzzled everyone. However, no one dared to object because this was the ancestor of the Huang family's decision. They could only guess at Ming Dong's identity, wondering which clan he belonged to. The Huang family's ancestor did not beat around the bush and directly cut to the chase. He said, "Old man has gathered everyone here today because he has something to announce." The ancestor of the Huang family paused and glanced at the experts of the Huang family below with bright eyes. He said, "From now on, the marriage between Huang Luan and the clan of the ancients is cancelled. Immediately send someone to inform the clan of the ancients about this." As soon as the ancestor of the Huang family finished speaking, many people's expressions changed. However, there were also some who smiled. In their opinion, the reason why the ancestor of the Huang family cancelled the marriage with a remote antiquity clan was because he had found more powerful reinforcements. The imperial protector of the Qin Huang kingdom was the best proof of that. "Ancestor, this is a matter of great importance. If we cancel the marriage on our own, it will undoubtedly be a slap to the face of the clan of the ancients. They will definitely become dissatisfied with us. If the situation worsens, our friendship with the clan of the ancients will be destroyed," an old man said sternly. "Elder Ping is right. Ancestor, we can't cancel the marriage. We have been friends with the clan of the ancients for hundreds of years. At the same time, the clan of the ancients values Huang Luan very much. If we do this, it will definitely destroy our friendship. Ancestor, please reconsider," another old man said. He was very against the idea of canceling the marriage. The Huang family's ancestors' eyes suddenly became sharp. He stared at the two old men and said, "Ping Qiao, Huang Ingran, old man knows that you have a good relationship with the clan of the ancients. However, the old man has already made up his mind. He can't change it. You two don't need to say more." The ancestor of the Huang family was so resolute that there was no room for negotiation. Everyone could tell that the ancestor of the Huang family was determined to cancel the marriage by force. At this moment, there was no point in arguing. Even those who had a good relationship with the clan of the ancients could only shut their mouths helplessly. It settled then. Send someone to inform the clan of the ancients right away and bring generous gifts as compensation, the ancestor of the Huang family said. Yes, ancestor. Everyone replied in unison. The ancestor of the Huang family announced again. In addition, the old man has something else to announce. Jianqin and Ming Dong will be the most esteemed guests of my Huang family from today onwards. Everyone must treat them with respect. If you neglect them, you will be severely punished by the old man. The ancestor of the Huang family became extremely stern towards the end. The two of them had the Grand Elder of Mercenary City behind them. They could not afford to offend him. The ancestor of the Huang family had already made up his mind. He would do everything he could to rope in the two of them. Everyone below trembled violently. They all stared at Ming Dong in shock. None of them had thought that the ancestor of the Huang family would place so much importance on Ming Dong. Jianqin's identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire was understandable, so he should have received such treatment. However, everyone was curious about Ming Dong's identity. The ancestor of the Huang family did not introduce Ming Dong in too much detail because his understanding of Ming Dong was extremely shallow. He only knew Ming Dong's name from how Jianqin had addressed him. However, after the disturbance caused by the ancestor of the Huang family, Ming Dong had gained a very high status despite being an outsider. All the Heaven Saint Masters had to treat Ming Dong politely. This was unprecedented in the history of the Huang family. After the meeting, the ancestor of the Huang family did not return to the back mountains to cultivate. Instead, he held a banquet and personally received Jianqin and Ming Dong. The actions of the ancestor of the Huang family stunned all the Heaven Saint Masters of the Huang family. A mighty saint ruler, personally receiving an Earth Saint Master, was definitely unheard of on the Tianyuan continent. However, this also made the experts of the Huang family even more curious about Ming Dong's identity. However, due to the ancestor of the Huang family, they could not directly ask about it, so they could only make wild guesses. Jianqin did not participate in the banquet. After bidding farewell to the ancestor of the Huang family, he directly made his way to Huang Wan's small residence. He wanted to tell her the good news. Jianqin entered the residence without any obstructions. He then made his way to the second floor. This time, Jianqin did not smell the pleasant fragrance. The fragrance from 2 days ago had completely vanished. Jianqin casually glanced around and discovered Huang Wan's figure. She still wore a black dress. Just like 2 days ago, she stood by the window and stared blankly at the scenery outside. She did not seem to be on guard at all. She did not even sense Jianqin's arrival. Jianqin sighed inside when he saw that Huang Wan had actually failed to sense his arrival. He could imagine just how much damage the marriage between the Huang family and the primordial clan had done to Huang Wan, to the point where she had become so dejected. Fortunately, the matter had been completely resolved. "Miss Huang Wan," Jianqin called out. The sudden voice seemed to startle Huang Wan, causing her to tremble violently. She immediately turned around and looked at Jianqin nervously. She knew extremely well that whether she could pursue her own happiness in the future would all depend on Jianqin. Jianqin could not help but smile when he saw how nervous Huang Wan was. He said, "Miss Huang Wan, I'm very happy to tell you that I've already resolved the matter for you. The ancestor of your Huang family has annulled the marriage between you and the primordial clan, so you don't have to worry about it anymore." Huang Wan was stunned for a moment, but it was soon replaced by surprise. Her delicate body trembled slightly, and she asked in an excited tone, Are you sure? Why? You're not lying to me. Has the ancestor really annulled the marriage between me and the primordial clan? During this time, she had been troubled and unhappy. The marriage between her and the second young master of the primordial clan was like a curse that tightly wrapped around her, tormenting her. Not only did she dislike the second young master of the primordial clan, but most importantly, she already had someone she loved. That person was so outstanding, basically the embodiment of perfection. Now, the curse that tightly bound her had finally been lifted, and it was lifted by the person she loved. She was overwhelmed with joy. Although she had no idea how Jianqin had managed to change the ancestor of the Huang family, she was smart enough to understand that it was definitely not easy for the ancestor of the Huang family to annul the marriage regardless of the consequences of offending the primordial clan. Of course it's true. If you don't believe me, you can ask around right now, Jianqin smiled. Chapter 5:27. Suddenly being kissed by Huang Yuan made Jianqin's mind go blank. He was completely stunned. This was because this was the first time in his life that he had done such an intimate action with a girl. The tip of his nose smelled the unique fragrance of a young girl emitted from Huang Yuan's body. He felt a wonderful sensation coming from his lips that he had never experienced before. Jianqin's thoughts became chaotic. At this moment, Jianqin was completely confused and did not know what to do. Perhaps Huang Yuan's feelings for Jianqin had been suppressed for too long. At this moment, they erupted like a volcanic eruption. They were incomparably fierce and unstoppable. She was very active and very intense. It was as if she wanted to use this kiss to completely reveal the feelings that she had suppressed in her heart. Although this was the first time Jianqin had experienced such a thing, at the beginning he was caught off guard and was at a loss. However, he soon regained his senses and felt the little tongue that was moving around in his mouth. Jianqin's heart also fiercely beat. Even his calm and long breathing became a lot heavier. Although Jianqin had never thought of talking about personal matters, he was after all a normal man. Moreover, Huang Yuan was so beautiful that her appearance could cause the downfall of a country. Even in the world, she was considered a peerless beauty. Facing such a beauty who took the initiative to kiss him, even Jianqin found it difficult to maintain his calm. The desire that had always been hidden in the depths of Jianqin's body was finally ignited, causing Jianqin to involuntarily close his eyes. Jianqin suddenly stretched out his arms and tightly hugged Huang Yuan's soft and seemingly boneless breasts. Huang Yuan's delicate body was tightly pressed against his own. Through the thin outer layer of clothing that Huang Yuan wore, Jianqin seemed to be able to feel Huang Yuan's burning hot body, causing his heart to surge. Their lips were already tightly pressed together. Jianqin's primitive desire was also ignited by Huang Yuan's initiative, and he responded fiercely. At this moment, the two of them seemed to have thrown away everything and enjoyed this moment to their heart's content. After a long while, their lips finally parted. Huang Yuan's arms were still tightly hugging Jianqin, refusing to let go. She raised her head slightly and stared lovingly at Jianqin's handsome face. Her eyes were filled with infatuation. Then, she gently leaned her head on Jianqin's shoulder and slowly closed her eyes, savoring the warmth after the passion. Jianqin took a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. He loosened his arms around Huang Yuan and lowered his head to look at the beauty lying on his shoulder, who seemed to be sleeping soundly. His expression was complicated. After a moment of silence, Jianqin looked up at the sky and let out a long sigh. He softly said, "Yuan, don't you regret doing this? Am I really worthy of your love?" Huang Yuan slowly opened her eyes and stared lovingly at Jianqin. She gently shook her head and said, "I don't regret it. I will never regret it in my life." "Jianqin, tell me, do you really have me in your heart?" Huang Yuan's eyes were filled with hope. Jianqin sighed softly and stared at Huang Yuan with a complicated expression. After a moment of silence, he opened his mouth and said, Luan I can't answer you right now because I have never thought of talking about love. The burden on my shoulders is very heavy, and the pressure I face is also very great. Right now, I only want to do my best to improve my strength. Huang Wan gently shook her head and said, Jianchen, it doesn't matter. Luan is willing to wait for you until the end of time, until eternity, forever. Jianchen's body trembled. At this moment, his heart actually began to tremble violently. He never thought that Huang Wan's feelings for him had reached such a deep level. Jianchen didn't say anything. He gently hugged Huang Wan's back and carefully smelled the fragrance emitted from her body. Today was the first time he kissed a girl, and at the same time, it was also the first time he hugged a girl's delicate body. This memory was very deep for Jianchen. That wonderful feeling had long been deeply implanted in Jianchen's soul and branded in the depths of his mind. He would never forget it. Since that was the case, then he would let this feeling last a little longer. The two of them hugged each other in the room and savored this warm moment. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. The two of them fell into an intoxicated state and forgot the passage of time. After an unknown period of time, suddenly a series of footsteps came from downstairs. Then a middle-aged man's voice sounded. Luan, are you there? Father has a good news to tell you. Hearing this voice, the two people who were hugging each other were like frightened rabbits. They hurriedly separated from each other and quickly tidied up their clothes. Their expressions quickly returned to normal, pretending as if nothing had happened. The Huang family head, Huang Qinglan, wearing a simple white robe, walked up from downstairs and appeared in front of Jianchen and Huang Wan. He smiled and said, Luan, Father has a great news to tell you. After hearing this news, you will definitely... Just as he said this, the Huang family head also noticed Jianchen, who had arrived before him. His expression suddenly froze, and the words in his mouth abruptly stopped. Family head. Jianchen acted as if nothing had happened and cupped his hands to greet the Huang family head with a smile on his face. The Huang family had only stared blankly for a moment before regaining his senses. His face was full of smiles, and he also cupped his hands and said, I didn't expect the Imperial Protector to also be here. This time, Luan matter was all thanks to the Imperial Protector's help. Luan was able to be free. Family head, you don't have to be so polite. Miss Huang Wan is this one's friend. She encountered difficulties, so this one should help her. Jianchen said. The Huang family head smiled slightly, and his gaze swept over Jianchen and Huang Wan. Although Jianchen and Huang Wan both pretended as if nothing had happened, with the Huang family head's experience, he still felt something strange. However, this made the Huang family head even happier. Then, the gaze he looked at Jianchen completely changed. It was the gaze of a father-in-law looking at his future son-in-law. The Imperial Protector must have told Wan about the matter. Since that's the case, then I won't say anything more. After saying that, the Huang family head looked at Huang Wan and smiled. Luan, the Imperial Protector spent a lot of effort for this matter. Even our old ancestor personally took action. You must properly thank him. Daughter understands, Huang Wan said in a low voice. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. You two take your time to chat. I still have something to deal with, so I'll take my leave first. Huang Qinglan didn't continue to stay and disturb the two and quickly left. After Huang Qinglan left, only Jianchen and Huang Wan were left in the room. For a moment, the two didn't speak, and the atmosphere was somewhat strange. After a moment of silence, Huang Wan opened her mouth and said, Jianchen, you dragged the Qin Empire into this matter. Will the Qin Empire really support you? Don't worry, this matter has nothing to do with the Qin Empire. I invited an extremely powerful senior over. This senior's deterrence is much greater than the Qin Empire's, so your old ancestor directly agreed. Jianchen said. Huang Wan's heart was moved once again. She knew that some extremely powerful seniors weren't that easy to invite. If one wanted to invite them, unless both sides had an extraordinary relationship, they would have to pay a heavy price. Jianqin stayed in Huang Wan's room for a while before leaving the small room by himself. Under the Huang family's urging, he stayed for a day. The next morning, the two of them bid farewell to Huang Wan and the Huang family's old ancestor. They planned on returning to the kingdom of Jessen. Little friend Jianqin, old man knows that you have some history with the sect of Dragon and Tiger. Take these 2 pieces of the mother-child twin jades with you. If the saint ruler of the sect of Dragon and Tiger tries to do anything to you, just crush them. Old man will come to your aid as quickly as possible. The Huang family's old ancestor took out 2 thumb-sized jades and handed them to Jianqin and Mingdong. After learning that the 2 of them had a close relationship with the Grand Elder of Mercenary City, the Huang family's old ancestor spared no effort in trying to rope them in and curry favor with them. This was because the Huang family might be able to establish ties with the Grand Elder of Mercenary City through this method. This was a treatment that even ancient clans yearned for. Thank you, Senior. I will remember Senior's kindness in my heart. Jianqin received the jades with great joy. The matter of the sect of Dragon and Tiger's saint ruler had been bothering Jianqin for the past few days. Now that the Huang family's old ancestor was willing to help him block the saint ruler of the sect of Dragon and Tiger, this solved the biggest problem in his heart. Ha 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 ha, little friend Jianqin, there's no need to be so polite. If you need our Huang family's help in the future, just say the word. Our Huang family will definitely do our best. The Huang family's old ancestor laughed heartily. P.S. Welcome to my Weibo and PGV_ref equals. Chapter 528. Jianqin and Mingdong left the Huang family. Since Mingdong was not yet a heaven saint master, he was unable to fly, so he was carried back by Jianqin. Looking at the ground below him, Mingdong's eyes were filled with yearning. He sighed. Jianqin, being a heaven saint master, is so good. Being able to fly freely in the sky is not only fast, but it's also very easy to travel. I really hope I can become a heaven saint master sooner. Hearing this, Jianqin chuckled. Why are you in such a hurry? There aren't many people at your age who can reach the 6th cycle of Earth Saint Master. With your current strength, who knows how many people on the Tianyuan continent are envious of you? And it's only a matter of time before you become a Heaven Saint Master. You should wait 2 years before you break through. For now, you should first build a good foundation and listen to your Uncle Tian. Of course I know that. Just seeing you fly freely in the sky gives me a sense of urgency. I want nothing more than to become a Heaven Saint Master right now. That way, I'll be able to fly with my own strength, Mingdong said. That day won't be too far away. It's already been half a year, so there's only 2.5 years left. It's not that long. It'll be over very soon, Jianqin said. Yes, that's true. I really look forward to that day. Mingdong's face was filled with eagerness. Becoming a Heaven Saint Master was the greatest dream of anyone who had yet to reach that level of cultivation. Suddenly, Mingdong seemed to think of something. He stared at Jianqin with shining eyes and said, "Oh, right, Jianqin. How far has your relationship with Huang Wan developed?" Hearing that, Jianqin immediately thought of the scene where he and Huang Wan made love in the room. His expression became rather mixed. After a moment of silence, he gently sighed. Let's not talk about that. I don't want to talk about relationships right now because there's still a lot of things we need to do. The burden on our shoulders is quite heavy. Is it because of the Shi family and the Jide family? Mingdong asked with a serious expression on his face. Since his Uncle Tian was not willing to deal with the Jide family, the 2 of them would have to deal with it themselves. 2 top families with Saint Kings in their ranks had indeed put a lot of pressure on the 2 of them. Jianqin nodded. Back then, the Shi family and the Jide family tried to kill me, and I even destroyed their ruler armaments. I am destined to fight to the death with them. However, without reaching the Saint Ruler realm, it is impossible to fight against them. Saint King." Upon hearing this, Mingdong's eyes also revealed a look of yearning. The temptation of becoming a saint ruler was too great because this was a brand new realm. Jianchen, Uncle Tian, said that in order to become a saint ruler, one must comprehend the mysteries of the world. "Can you try comprehending the mysteries of the world now?" Mingdong asked seriously. Jianchen shook his head. "The mysteries of the world are based on the yuan qi of the world. Only when one's control of the yuan qi of the world reaches the limit can one come into contact with the mysteries of the world. Although my will is much stronger than that of a normal heaven saint master, my comprehension of the yuan qi of the world is still very shallow. I'm far from being able to comprehend the mysteries of the world. When one's comprehension of the yuan qi of the world is deep enough, they will naturally come into contact with the mysteries of the world. There is no shortcut to this." Mingdong's face was filled with disappointment. "Looks like we can only take it step by step." 2 days later, Jianchen and Mingdong returned to Chanyang Prefecture. Although Xiaoqian's group of 5 and Chanyang Ba's group were curious about their sudden disappearance, none of them panicked because they were confident in Jianchen's strength. They only thought that Jianchen and Mingdong had suddenly left because of something urgent. No one asked where Jianchen had gone in the past few days because no one had the right to. Even Jianchen's parents, Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian, did not ask about Jianchen's matters. This was because they understood that their child had already become a great figure who could hold his own. He was in a completely different realm from them. Jianchen exchanged some pleasantries with everyone before returning to his personal residence by himself. He walked briskly to his bedroom and arrived before the large bed in the bedroom. The white tiger was sleeping soundly beside the pillow at the head of the bed. Beside him were a few thousand-year-old heavenly resources. A sliver of worry gradually appeared on Jianchen's face as he looked at the few heavenly resources left. He murmured, "I left behind such a huge pile of heavenly resources, yet there's only so much left. Sigh, the white tiger's appetite is getting bigger and bigger." With that, Jianchen once again took out a pile of heavenly resources from his space ring and placed them beside the white tiger. Then he walked out. Following that, Jianchen spent 2 peaceful days in Chanyang Prefecture. He spent most of his time accompanying his friends and Princess Yu as they strolled around Chanyang Prefecture. However, the next day, Qin Ji received a letter from the Qin Empire, asking him to return immediately. After receiving the letter, Qin Ji did not stay in Chanyang Prefecture for long. He bid farewell to Jianchen and left in a hurry with the 5 imperial advisors. However, Xiaotian and the other 4, as well as Qin Wuming and his sons, stayed behind. One side was in charge of the 500,000 soldiers of the Eastern Sword Legion stationed outside Lore City, while the other side was in charge of Chanyang Prefecture. Jianchen, dressed in a luxurious white robe, came alone to the room where Ken-Lil III and his mother lived. Because Ken-Lil III and his mother were treated warmly by Changyang Ba and by Yuntian, the 2 people with the highest status in Chanyang Prefecture, the mother and son had a very high status in Chanyang Prefecture. The mother and son occupied a small, independent courtyard and had special servants to serve them. Moreover, the head of Changyang Prefecture, Changbo, had ordered that all the expenses incurred when the mother and son went shopping would be paid by Chanyang Prefecture. In addition, special guards were sent to protect the mother and son. The treatment they received was no worse than that of the head of the household, Changyang Ba. However, Ken-Lil III and his mother were very honest. They had been living in Changyang Prefecture peacefully, although they would occasionally go out for a stroll and see the prosperity of the big cities. They had never bought anything. When Jianchen found Ken-Lil III and his mother, the mother and son were discussing something in the room. Their brows were slightly furrowed, and from time to time, they would show a thoughtful or embarrassed expression. Auntie, Lil 3, are you used to living here? If you have any needs, feel free to look for Chang Bo. Chang Bo will do his best to satisfy you, Jianchen said with a smile. Seeing Jianchen's sudden visit, Ken Lil 3 and his mother were shocked. They immediately stood up and respectfully said, Greetings, fourth young master. As they spoke, the mother and son bowed. During the time they had been living in Changyang Prefecture, Ken Lil 3 and his mother had a deeper understanding of Jianchen. They knew that Jianchen's position in Changyang Prefecture had reached a level that no one could surpass. At the same time, he was also the imperial protector of the kingdom of Jessen. Such a huge difference in status made the mother and son feel a sense of panic. Auntie, Lil 3, we're all family. There's no need to be so polite. Jianchen controlled the qi of heaven and earth with his mind, causing the heaven and earth to temporarily imprison the mother and son's bodies, so that the mother and son could not bow. The mother and son were Uncle Kendall's only family. How could Jianchen let them bow to him? Jianchen walked to the table calmly and sat down. He smiled and said, Auntie Lil 3, please sit down. Looking at the two of you just now, did you encounter any difficulties? The mother and son hesitated for a moment. In the end, it was Lil 3 who spoke. Fourth young master, my mother and I are very grateful for your care. It's just that my mother and I are used to the ordinary life we had before. We're not used to living here, so we want to move out. Jianchen frowned when he heard that. However, before he could say anything, the auntie said, Fourth young master, Lil 3 is right. Perhaps we weren't born to live luxurious lives. We really aren't used to living like this. I plan to use my savings to buy a small restaurant in Lore City and continue my life as a restaurant. Please allow me to do so, fourth young master. Jianchen frowned and thought for a while. In the end, he decided to respect the mother and son's decision. He gently sighed, All right, since Annie and Lil 3 like to live like before, I can only support you. Auntie, there's no need for you to worry about the restaurant. I'll get Chang Bo to arrange it. In a place far, far away from the Jessen kingdom, in an independent space, a gigantic floating shrine was floating 100 meters in the air. Grand Elder, we've discovered that the people of the Blood Sword sect have been moving around recently. However, they've been appearing along the coastline very frequently. An old man clasped his hands respectfully. An old man respectfully clasped his hands together. In front of him was a middle-aged man sitting in the void. He was Mingdong's uncle Tian Jian, the Blood Sword sect. Tian Jian frowned slightly and murmured, The Blood Sword sect hasn't appeared on the Tianyuan continent for 1,000 years. They've suddenly appeared this time, and they've even appeared along the coastline. What are they trying to do? Great Elder, will the Blood Sword sect make some kind of big move again? The elder in front of him guessed with a respectful expression. Tian Jian remained silent for a while before replying. Houston left the Tianyuan continent 1,000 years ago and has been living in seclusion ever since. He has never interfered with the matters of the Tianyuan continent, now that the Blood Sword sect has suddenly returned. Tian Jian frowned slightly as he sank into his thoughts, but soon after, Tian Jian let out a long sigh. His tightly furrowed brows suddenly relaxed. He said, 23rd Elder, you should go and discuss these matters with the 2nd Elder and the 3rd Elder in the future. There is no need to report to me. Yes, Grand Elder. The old man withdrew. Chapter 5:29. In Changyang Prefecture, Jianchen had gathered Mingdong, Dugafeng, Yunzhang, and Senior and together. They were currently sitting around a round table. Jianchen looked around and muttered to himself for a moment. After sorting out his thoughts, he said, Now that the matter with the kingdom of Jessen has been completely resolved, it's time for us to do our own things. Mingdong's eyes lit up as he asked, Jianchen, are you talking about the Blazing Flame mercenaries? That's right, the Blazing Flame mercenaries. Jianchen muttered to himself, after returning to the kingdom of Jessen for so long. I've long wanted to see just how big the blazing flame mercenaries have become. However, I've been preoccupied with all sorts of matters and didn't have the time to take care of them. That's why it's been delayed until today. Now that the matter has been resolved, we should put our remaining energy on the blazing flame mercenaries. Jianchen, where is this mercenary group that you've established? How come I've never seen it before? Also, how strong is the group? Yunzheng asked. I didn't establish the blazing flame mercenaries. I'm only the second leader. I've already left the group for more than 2 years. If they haven't changed locations, they should still be in Lore City of the Blue Wind Kingdom. As for the group's strength... At this point, Jianchen smiled awkwardly. You'll know when you see it. Haha, Jianchen. I've long heard that you have a mercenary group. It's just that I've never seen it before. I'm really looking forward to going to Wake City so I can see just what your mercenary group is like. Mingdong chuckled. When are we leaving? The one who spoke was De Gafeng. Due to his cold personality, he was expressionless when he spoke. Hearing this, Jianchen muttered to himself, before going to Wake City, I still have a place to go. You guys can stay in Changyang Prefecture for a while. Once I return, we'll leave immediately. Afterwards, they all dispersed. However, Jianchen asked Mingdong to stay behind and said, Mingdong, come with me. I'll introduce you to a friend. Sure, where are we going? Mingdong agreed without hesitation. Kargath Academy. Jianchen and Mingdong left Changyang Prefecture. Jianchen brought Mingdong along as they flew towards Kargath Academy. In the south, there was a primeval forest filled with magical beasts. This forest was called the Fog Forest because it was shrouded in a thick fog all year round. Moreover, the deeper one went into the forest, the thicker the fog was, making it easy to get lost. According to the records left behind by the ancestors, the Fog Forest was originally an ordinary forest filled with magical beasts. However, thousands of years ago, for some unknown reason, this very ordinary forest was suddenly shrouded in a thick fog. In the beginning, everyone was curious, and many self-proclaimed strong mercenaries formed groups to explore the Fog Forest. However, not a single one of them made it out alive. However, their disappearance didn't cause any fear among the mercenaries. Instead, it attracted more and more mercenaries. Many people believed that some kind of treasure had appeared in the depths of the Fog Forest. Driven by greed, even more mercenaries formed large groups and set off towards the Fog Forest. However, a few days later, only a few of the several thousand mercenaries who had entered the depths of the Fog Forest managed to escape with heavy injuries. At the same time, they brought a shocking piece of news. A Class 6 magical beast had actually appeared in the depths of the Fog Forest. This piece of news was no different from a clap of thunder to many mercenaries. This was because the few cities near the Fog Forest were only second or third class cities. A Class 5 magical beast was already extremely powerful to them. A Class 6 magical beast was an existence that they could only look up to. It could easily destroy any second-class city. This piece of news very quickly alarmed the nearby kingdoms. Afterward, they all sent Heaven Saint Masters to the depths of the Fog Forest in an attempt to kill the Class 6 magical beast and obtain its monster core. This was because basically all Class 6 magical beasts lived in the depths of the Cross Mountains on the Tianyuan continent. This place was definitely a forbidden zone to all human experts because any Heaven Saint Master who entered this forbidden zone would not be able to make it out alive. As a result, Class 6 magical beasts were extremely rare on the Tianyuan continent. Every time a Class 6 magical beast appeared, it would be hunted down by various experts. However, not long after the Heaven Saint Masters from the various kingdoms flew into the depths of the Fog Forest, all of them left with their tails between their legs without any exception. There were no sounds of fighting either, which greatly disappointed all the mercenaries who wanted to watch the Heaven Saint Masters fight the Class 6 magical beast. However, just like this, the fog forest became even more intimidating in the hearts of many mercenaries. Its name gradually spread. Although it was not known throughout the continent, there was no one who did not know of it within a radius of several tens of thousands of kilometers. From then on, all the mercenaries knew that the fog forest hid a terrifying existence that even Heaven Saint Masters feared. As a result, although many mercenaries still hunted magical beasts in the fog forest, they all lingered around the outskirts. No one dared to enter the depths of the fog forest, other than a few Heaven Saint Masters who had entered the depths of the fog forest before. No one could imagine that there was actually a large group of buildings hidden there. All the fog in the surroundings was wrapped around the buildings, unable to seep in at all. In the center of this building, a pagoda that was 1,000 meters tall stood there. On the first floor of the pagoda, several old men were sitting there with smiles on their faces as they chatted happily. Two of them were old men Fong and Fong from the Huang clan. Elder Fong, Elder Yin, it's rare for the two of you to come to my Huanggu clan. Why don't you stay a little longer this time? The one who spoke was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. He wore a simple white robe and had a somewhat sage-like temperament. Patriarch Jiang, the two of us never visit without a reason. We've come this time for something important, Elder Fong said. He seemed troubled, as if he found it rather difficult to speak. Haha, just what matter could make the two elders personally come here? Could it be that the Hongfu clan has made a new move? Patriarch Jiang said with a smile. Elder Fong shook his head and took out a letter from his storage ring. He passed it to the Patriarch and said, Patriarch Jiang, please take a look. Jiang family head took the envelope and opened it. However, when he finished reading the contents of the letter, his originally smiling face turned a little ugly. He said in a deep voice, Your Huang family actually took the initiative to cancel the engagement. Elder Fong, Elder Yin, I wonder what your Huang family means by doing this? The two elders smiled apologetically and clasped their hands. Please calm down, Patriarch Jiang. This decision was personally made by our ancestor. The Patriarch's face became slightly stern when he heard the word ancestor. He slammed the letter heavily on the table and said with an ugly expression, Elders, what is the meaning of this? He was the one who proposed the engagement back then, yet he wants to annul it unilaterally. Is he toying with my Huanggu clan? Patriarch Jiang, I'm truly sorry. Our young lady already has someone in her heart, and our Huang family can't forcefully separate them, so we can only annul the engagement. If we've offended you in any way, please forgive us, Elder Yin said apologetically. Humph. May I ask which young master your young lady has taken a liking to for your Huang family's ancestor to make such a decision? The Patriarch asked with an ugly expression. The person our young lady has taken a liking to is the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, Elder Fong smiled. Elder Fong said with a smile. He could already imagine the expression on Patriarch Jiang's face when he heard the news. As expected, the Patriarch's expression immediately changed when he heard the name of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. Deep fear filled his eyes, but he sneered soon after. So that's how it is. So your Huang family has found a huge tree like the Qin Empire. Indeed, with the support of the Qin Empire, your Huang family no longer needs to fear the threat of the Hongfu clan. The patriarch of the Jiang family was unable to contain his anger. The young lady of the Huang family, Huang Wan, was extraordinarily talented, having reached Earth Saint Master at the age of 20. Even their Huanggu clan admired her greatly. They had once tried to pull Huang Wan into their clan, but they were all rejected by the Huang family. Finally, half a year ago, the Hongfu family made another big move, which put a lot of pressure on the Huang family. That was why they acted abnormally and took the initiative to propose a marriage alliance with a remote antiquity family. They wanted to combine the power of the two families to deter the Hongfu family, so that the Hongfu family would not dare to act rashly. The clan of the ancients accepted the proposal with great joy. Once the clan of the ancients joined forces with the Huang family, their strength would once again be balanced with the Hongfu clan. The Hongfu clan would not dare to act rashly because once the two clans of equal strength clashed, both sides would suffer in the end. The Hongfu clan would not take the risk. It could be said that the alliance between the Huang family and the Huanggu clan was only to intimidate the Hongfu clan. They did not actually want to go to war, which was why the Huanggu clan had agreed so readily. Now that the Huang family had unilaterally annulled the marriage alliance, the patriarch of the Huanggu clan was extremely displeased. This was because the Huanggu clan valued Huang Wan far too much. Moreover, the person Huang Wan was marrying was the grandson of the current patriarch of the Huanggu clan. How could the patriarch not be angry? Chapter 530. Feng Yun and Feng Yun left helplessly. After they left, family head Jiang frowned and stood there thinking for a while. Then he went straight to the top floor of the pagoda. The clan of the ancients did value Huang Wan very much. Even the ancestor of the clan of the ancients praised Huang Wan. Now that the Huang family suddenly canceled the engagement, family head Jiang had to report it to the ancestor. Family head Jiang came to the top floor of the pagoda and stopped in front of a closed iron door. He said respectfully, "I, Jiang Tao, have something to report to the ancestor." After a moment of silence, an old voice came through the heavy iron door. "Speak." "Ancestor, the Huang family canceled the engagement between Huang Wan and our clan of the ancients. They chose to marry Huang Wan to an imperial protector of the Qin Empire." Family head Jiang said respectfully, "What? The engagement is canceled? She's going to marry Huang Wan to an imperial protector of the Qin Empire?" The old voice came from behind the iron door. There was anger in his voice. Hearing the anger in the ancestor's voice, a trace of doubt flashed through Jiang family head's eyes. Although he knew that the ancestor valued Huang Wan very much, he never thought that she would be able to affect the ancestor's mood. Although he was confused, family head Jiang didn't dare to ask. He replied, "Yes, ancestor. The Huang family just came to cancel the engagement." The voice behind the iron door fell silent. After a while, the old voice said, "Okay, I know. You can leave now." This time, the old voice was much calmer. "Yes, ancestor. I, Jiang Tao, will leave now." Family head Jiang bowed to the iron door respectfully and then left. After family head Jiang left, the closed iron door slowly opened. An old man in a blue robe came out with a gloomy face. His eyebrows were tightly knitted together. The Huang family actually betrothed Huang Wan to an imperial protector of the Qin Empire. Could it be that the Qin Empire's imperial protector has discovered that this girl possesses the water spirit body? No, this is impossible. Unless he cultivates the heavenly scripture of the heavenly blooming water, it is impossible for him to discover the secret of the water spirit body. The old man frowned as he muttered to himself. After hesitating for a moment, he finally gritted his teeth and said, "No, the water spirit body is too important to me. I have to go and investigate the situation." The old man's body swayed slightly and turned into a beam of light. He flew out of the tower at an extremely fast speed and was instantly submerged in the thick white fog. In the faraway kingdom of Jessen, Jianqin, and Mingdong traveled thousands of kilometers in the air and finally arrived at their destination, Kargath Academy. The two of them landed on the outskirts of Kargath Academy and walked in. When they arrived at the entrance, they were stopped by the guards at the entrance. "Two young masters, please show your student identification. Otherwise, you are prohibited from entering. This is the Academy's rule." The guard saw that Jianqin and Mingdong had extraordinary appearances and were wearing luxurious clothes. He knew that the two of them were either rich or noble, so his tone was more polite. Jianqin smiled and took out a badge from his space ring, saying, "Can I go in now?" Back then, Jianqin was also a student of Kargath Academy, so he naturally had a student identification issued by the academy. 2 young masters, please. This time, the guard did not stop Jianqin and Mingdong. He smiled and gestured for them to enter. Jianqin and Mingdong entered Kargath Academy very smoothly. Although Jianqin had left for a few years, the academy had not changed much compared to before. The only major change was that the small trees planted in the academy had grown a lot. Kargath Academy was very lively. A large number of students were chatting and laughing in the school grounds. There were both males and females, and most of them were around 18 or 19 years old. Occasionally, there would be a few seniors who were slightly older. Jianqin, so this is the academy you used to study in? It doesn't seem like much. These students are basically all saints, and many of them haven't even condensed a saint weapon, Mingdong said disapprovingly as he walked beside Jianqin and looked around. Jianqin chuckled. Do you think everyone is like you, reaching the realm of Earth Saint Master at such a young age? Although there are many geniuses on the Tianyuan continent, it's already amazing for a small place like the Kingdom of Jesson to have 1 or 2 of them appear. How can they be everywhere? Mingdong felt that it was reasonable and agreed. That's true. Oh, right, Jianqin. Who did you bring me here to find? Is there someone here that can catch your eye? You'll know in a bit. Let's go find the principal first and ask him about his whereabouts. He can be said to be the only friend I know in Kargath Academy. His talent is pretty good, and he's also born with great strength. His strength is so great that even I have to admire it, Jianqin said. Haha, now that you mention it, I really do want to meet this friend of yours. Mingdong also became interested and chuckled. The 2 of them walked towards the tower in the center of the academy. This was the place where the most authority was held in Kargath Academy. It was also where the principal, Kafir, resided. At this moment, an uproar rang out. Everyone, go take a look. The second-ranked expert of the academy is challenging the number 1 expert. This is an extremely rare and exciting battle. You can't miss it. What? Ka Dun is challenging the number 1 expert of the academy? The number 1 expert, Ling Jingtian, broke through to Saint Master half a year ago. Ka Dun is clearly only a high-level great saint, yet he's challenging a Saint Master. Isn't he just asking to be humiliated? What do you know? According to reliable sources, Ka Dun broke through to Saint Master half a month ago. His strength is on par with Ling Jingtian's. No way. Ka Dun has already broken through to Saint Master? This cultivation speed is truly too fast. He's 2 years younger than Ling Jingtian, yet he reached Saint Master so quickly. He's simply the person with the fastest cultivation speed in our Kargath Academy. Bah, who said that Ka Dun's cultivation speed is the fastest in our Kargath Academy. Could it be that you haven't heard of the young master of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang who? He's also a student of our Kargath Academy. He broke through to Great Saint Master a year ago. It's just that Changyang who has already left Kargath Academy. If he didn't leave, then apart from those teachers, who else among us students would be his match? TCH, what's Changyang who? Don't you know the 4th young master of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten? I heard that Changyang Shoten was also a student of our Kargath Academy in the past. He even became the champion of the new student competition as soon as he entered the academy. He's really powerful. No one in the Kargath Academy is his opponent. Changyang Shoten. I know. As soon as she heard the name Changyang Shoten, a girl around the age of 18 immediately jumped up in excitement and said, I know about Changyang Shoten. He's currently the imperial protector of our kingdom of Jesson. His position is even higher than our principal's. I heard that his strength has already reached the realm of Heaven's Saint Master. This is simply too amazing. He seems to only be in his 20s. What? Reaching the realm of Heaven's Saint Master in his 20s? And he's even our kingdom of Jesson's imperial protector? You're not dreaming, right? This is simply impossible. Even a genius can't reach the realm of Heaven's Saint Master in his 20s. A male student clearly didn't believe it and voiced his doubts. Many students in the surroundings looked at that male student with strange gazes. One person said, "This student, you probably haven't gone out for a long time." Who doesn't know the name of the fourth young master of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten? This matter is absolutely true. There's no way it's fake. Another person said, "I heard that Changyang Shoten had some conflict with Kadyun when he first entered the academy. I wonder if it's true." You're right. Something like that did happen. A slightly older person put his hands on his hips and said with conviction, "I entered the academy at the same time as Changyang Shoten. During the competition for new students, Changyang Shoten defeated Ka Diliang and Ka Dakielai to obtain first place. Ka Diliang and Ka Dakielai were unconvinced and challenged Changyang Shoten. However, they were both defeated by Changyang Shoten. In the end, Ka Diyun, who had already condensed a saint weapon, personally took action, but he still lost to Changyang Shoten. I heard that Changyang Shoten was only at the 8th layer of saint force at that time. Wow, is this real? Changyang Shangtian is just too amazing." Many of the students in the surroundings were drawn over. They all sighed in amazement as admiration filled their faces. "What are you all talking about?" Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from the side. A tall woman in a long green dress was standing outside the crowd, staring at them with a cold expression. The girl was very beautiful with delicate features. Although she couldn't be said to be devastatingly beautiful, she was still a rare beauty. Beside the girl, there was a very handsome young man who was about 23 or 24 years old. The arrival of this man and woman caused the numerous students, who were originally discussing animatedly, to immediately become completely silent. Soon after, quite a number of people immediately greeted the two with flattering smiles. "So, it's senior sister Ka Dakielai and senior brother Ka Diliang." "Greetings, senior sister Ka Dakielai and senior brother Ka Diliang." Now, Ka Diyun and his siblings were the influential figures of Kargath Academy. Almost everyone who studied in Kargath Academy didn't know their name because the three siblings were very powerful. Among them, Ka Diyun had already broken through to Saint Master, and his strength was comparable to the number 1 expert of Kargath Academy. As for Ka Dakielai and Ka Diliang, their strength had reached high rank Great Saint, and they were only 1 step away from Saint Master. Among the top 10 experts of Kargath Academy, the 3 of them took up 3 spots. Third sister, don't bother with them. Big Brother's competition is about to start. Let's hurry over and support Big Brother, Ka Diliang said to Ka Dakielai, and then pulled her toward the direction of the martial field. The 2 of them didn't look very good. Ka Dakielai walked side by side with Ka Diliang with a somewhat downcast expression. In her mind, she couldn't help but recall some of the unpleasant things that happened between her and Changyang Shoten a few years ago. The 2 siblings were very clear about what happened outside. She never thought that Changyang Shoten, who was on the same starting line as them, would suddenly become so terrifyingly strong in just a few short years. That was a heaven Saint Master, an existence that the 3 siblings could only look up to. The students who had gathered to discuss intensely also dispersed with the arrival of Ka Dakielai and her sister. They all rushed toward the direction of the martial field. Jianchen and Ming Dong, who were still a few dozen meters away, heard their conversation clearly. "Jianchen, I didn't think that you were an influential figure here in the past. TSK, TSK, TSK. Amazing, amazing. You actually defeated a saint who had condensed a saint weapon with the strength of an 8th layer saint force. You're much stronger than me back then." Ming Dong stood beside Jianchen and joked. Chapter 531. When Jianchen and Ming Dong arrived at the arena, it was already filled with students. Several hundred students had formed a circle around the arena as they discussed in low voices. However, Ka Diyun and Ling Jingtian, who were about to fight, had yet to arrive. However, The battle between Ka Diyun and Ling Jingtian was very popular in Kargath Academy. Jianchen waited for a while as more and more students gathered around the arena. In just a short incense stick's worth of time, there were already several thousand people. More than half of Kargath Academy's students were gathered here. I wonder who will win this battle. Nonsense. Of course Ling Jingtian is stronger. Although Ka Diyun has broken through to Saint Master and is on the same level as Ling Jingtian has broken through to Saint Master a long time ago. With his talent, he might have already reached intermediate Saint Master. How could Ka Diyun be his opponent? Ka Diyun has challenged several dozen experts in our Kargath Academy and has never lost. This time he dares to challenge Ling Jingtian, so he must have confidence in winning. The surrounding students were discussing spiritedly, causing the arena to be filled with low buzzing sounds. Jianchen and Ming Dong also stood quietly in the sea of people, waiting to watch a good show. However, because all the students here were wearing the same uniform, the white-robed Jianchen and Ming Dong standing in the crowd were very eye-catching. The surrounding students all looked at them with surprise, but no one asked. Jianchen stood in the crowd with his arms crossed. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat as he felt a special gaze land on him. He immediately turned around and saw a naturally beautiful girl staring at him. Her limpid eyes carried a bit of suspicion and doubt. It was Ka Diyun. Compared to a few years ago, Ka Diyun had changed a lot. She was less impetuous and unruly, more mature and steady. Her appearance was also more beautiful than a few years ago. Although Jianchen had some disagreements with Ka Diyun and her siblings, those were only children's quarrels. Therefore, Jianchen didn't hold any grudges against the three siblings. Seeing that Ka Diyun had noticed him, Jianchen smiled and nodded at her in a friendly manner. It could be considered a greeting before moving his gaze away. Ka Diyun's eyes stared at Jianchen's handsome face. Her eyes were full of thoughts as her brows were tightly knitted together. Then she gently touched Ka Diyun, who was standing beside her, and softly said, "Second brother, do you see that person in white robes? Why do I feel that he is so familiar, as if I have seen him somewhere before, but I can't remember where?" Jianchen had changed a lot in these few years. Even Chang Bo, who was very familiar with him, didn't recognize him, let alone Ka Diyun, who wasn't familiar with Jianchen. Hearing his third sister's words, Ka Diyun's eyes also fell on Jianchen. Then he gently shook his head and smiled. "I wonder which family's young master he is. He is actually so handsome. Even second brother is jealous. Second brother, I feel that he is a bit familiar, but I can't remember who he is. Don't you know?" Ka Diyun's brows slightly furrowed. Ka Diyun stared at Jianchen again and shook his head. "I don't know, but I have never seen him before." Saying this, Ka Diyun turned his head and looked at Ka Diyun meaningfully. He laughed evilly and said, "Third sister, that brat is really not bad looking. Don't tell me you've taken a fancy to him. Later, second brother will send someone to help you find out about that brat." Ka Diyun fiercely glared at Ka Diyun and didn't waste any more words with him. She frowned and thought hard. At this moment, two figures suddenly flipped over from behind the crowd and landed on the stage at the same time. The two looked to be around 25 or 26 years old and wore the same school uniform. Just as the two stepped on the stage, there was a deafening roar from below. "It's Ka Diyun and Ling Jingtian. Ka Diyun, do your best, defeat Ling Jingtian. Ling Jingtian will win." The students around the stage all let out excited shouts, cheering for the two on the stage. The shouts lasted for a good while before finally calming down. As the two got on the stage, Ka Diyun's gaze moved away from Jianchen and landed on the stage. She looked expectantly at her older brother Ka Diyun. Ka Diyun and Ling Jingtian exchanged a few words on the stage and then took out their holy weapons at the same time. Ka Diyun's holy weapon was a two-handed greatsword, while Ling Jingtian's was a thin, long saber. As soon as they took out their holy weapons, the two began to fight fiercely on the stage. Ding, ding, dang, 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 dang. As the clanging sounds of saint weapons rang out incessantly, Kadiyun and Ling Jingtian began to fight intensely on the stage. Although the two of them were not fighting to the death, their performance still captivated the spectating students. A battle between two saint masters was enough for these students, who were all around the saint realm, to pay close attention to it. Kadiyun and Ling Jingtian fought for an entire incense stick's worth of time, but no victor was decided. However, Mingdong had lost interest long ago. He could not even be bothered to watch. With his strength as an Earth Saint Master, watching a battle between two Saint Masters was like watching a child show off in front of an expert. He could not find the slightest interest in it. I'll let you have a taste of my battle skill. At this moment, Kadiyun suddenly yelled out. A layer of powerful saint force suddenly shot out from his great sword, viciously slashing toward Ling Jingtian with tremendous force. Ling Jingtian's expression changed when he heard the words battle skill. It was already too late for him to dodge. All he could do was block the attack with all his strength. Boom! With a soft sound, Kadiyun's great sword heavily struck Ling Jingtian's saber. A battle skill was far more powerful than a normal attack. The great force from Kadiyun's great sword directly sent Ling Jingtian flying. In the end, he flew off the stage and landed on the ground in a horrible shape. A mouthful of blood uncontrollably spurted from his mouth. After a short moment of silence, an even louder cheer suddenly erupted. They were all cheering for Kadiyun's victory. Kadiyun has won. Kadiyun has defeated Ling Jingtian and become the #1 expert of our Kargith Academy. Kadiyun is the #1 expert of our Kargith Academy. Below the arena, Kadichili and Kadiliang also showed happy smiles on their faces. They were excited for their brother Kadiyen's victory. Kadiyun inserted his two-handed great sword into the ground of the arena. He looked down at the crowd and shouted in a heroic manner, "Is there anyone who is not convinced? Come and challenge me. Today, I, Kadiyun, will stand here and accept everyone's challenge." Even the #1 expert, Ling Jingtian, has been defeated by Kadiyun. Who else in our Kargith Academy can be a match for Kadiyun? Kadiyun has already grasped a battle skill. Even some of our Academy's teachers are no match for him. I'm afraid only those great Saint Master teachers can suppress Kadiyun. Below the stage, many students were discussing in low voices. Standing in the crowd, Jianqin looked at Kadiyun's arrogance and suddenly felt playful. He smiled and said, "This brat is quite arrogant. I just heard that he seems to have had some conflicts with you. Jianqin, I'll go play with him." Saying this, Mingdong did not wait for Jianqin's permission and directly jumped onto the stage. Seeing Mingdong already on the stage, Jianqin was already too late to stop him. He could only helplessly shake his head and smile bitterly. A 6th cycle Earth Saint Master bullying a Saint Master in this kind of situation. Wasn't he afraid of being laughed at? Mingdong crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled at the heroic Kadiyun. He said, "Brat, you're called Kadiyun, right? Let me have a go at you." Looking at Mingdong, who suddenly jumped onto the ring, the spectating students around the ring suddenly burst into a buzz of discussion. Everyone was curious about the identity of this youth who didn't wear the school uniform. While standing in the crowd, Ka Diliang and Ka Di Chili both frowned. Who is this person? How come I've never seen him before? And he's not wearing a school uniform. It seems like he's not a student of our Kargith Academy. Ka Diliang frowned and softly said. He then waved his hand to call over a student beside him and said in a low voice, "Immediately go inform Vice Principal Bayan. Just say that an outsider has broken into Kargith Academy and is causing trouble." Yes. That student was the son of one of the guards of the Ka Diliang family. He did not dare to disobey Ka Diliang's orders and immediately ran off. Ka Diyun saw that Mingdong was wearing a white robe and could not help but reveal a trace of suspicion. He probingly asked, "You're not a student of our Kargath Academy?" "You guessed right. I am indeed not a student of Kargath Academy. Regardless of the outcome of this match, it will not affect the #1 expert of Kargath Academy in the slightest. So do you still want to fight?" Mingdong crossed his arms in front of his chest and said with a smile, "Fight? Of course I'm going to fight. I, Kadiyun, have never been afraid of anyone. It's just that I don't know how to address you, brother." Kadiyun cupped his fist and said to Mingdong, "I'll tell you my name after we fight." Mingdong said with a faint smile. He was just having fun and treated this as something fun. Kadiyun saw that Mingdong was about the same age as him and did not take Mingdong seriously in his heart. This was because there were very few people of the same age who could beat him. "Even if you're not a student of my Kargath Academy, I still accept your challenge. Let's fight," Kadiyun said to Mingdong as he reached out and pulled out the holy weapon that was stabbed into the stage. He assumed a posture that was both offensive and defensive. Chapter 532. Mingdong giggled as he looked at Kadiyun. He did not take out his saint weapon and said, "In order to prevent people from saying that I'm bullying a child, I can't go too far. How about this? I'll just stand here without moving. At the same time, I won't fight back. If you can force me back or make me move an inch, then it'll be my loss. How about that?" Mingdong said casually. With his strength as a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master, he really did not place a mere Saint Master in his eyes. Even if his opponent used a battle skill, it would not be able to threaten him at all. The difference in strength between the two was just too great. Although Mingdong's words were said very calmly, many of the students around the stage heard them clearly. Everyone immediately looked at Mingdong as if they were looking at an idiot. Some of the more hot-tempered people couldn't help but curse at him. Just who is this brat? He's so fucking arrogant. He doesn't look much older than Kadiyun. He actually dares to say such big words. Does he want to die? Who does he think he is? Even the teachers of our academy don't dare to say such big words to Kadiyun, who has grasped a battle skill. Curses rang out from below the stage. Quite a few hot-tempered male students pointed at Mingdong's nose and cursed. The two siblings, Kadiliang and Kadichili, also frowned. Their faces were filled with unconcealable anger. What an arrogant brat! He actually dares to say such arrogant words to Big Brother. Big Brother has already grasped a battle skill. Even a high-level great Saint Master wouldn't dare to stand there and let Big Brother attack unless he's an Earth Saint Master. Speaking up to here, Kadiliang's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. He coldly snorted, "But that's impossible. He's not much older than Big Brother. It's already not bad if he's stronger than Big Brother. It's definitely impossible for him to reach the Earth Saint Master level." Kadichili frowned as she pondered. Looking at Mingdong's confident expression, she couldn't help but feel uneasy. She worriedly said, "Second brother, look at how relaxed that person is. Could it be that he has something to rely on?" "Second sister, you're overthinking it. Even if he has something to rely on, it's impossible for him to stand there and let Big Brother attack him while remaining unscathed. I think this outsider is definitely here to stir up trouble. When I return, I'll definitely investigate his background and see where he came from. How dare he go against our Kardi family?" Kadiliang said coldly. On the stage, Kadiyun's expression became rather ugly. He glared at Mingdong and said in a deep voice, "Sir, you seem to be a little too arrogant." "Because I have the right to be arrogant," Mingdong said with a cheeky smile. Kadiyun's face darkened. In his ears, Mingdong's words were undoubtedly provocative. "Well then, let me see how great your Excellency's ability is," Kadiyun said angrily. Then, he didn't waste any more words. He waved his huge sword and slashed at Mingdong. The huge sword cut through the air with powerful saint force, heading straight for Mingdong's waist. It actually produced a soft sound along the way. Mingdong's actions had clearly angered Kadiyun. Coupled with the fact that he was an outsider and not a student of Kargath Academy, Kadian used his full strength in this attack without holding back at all. Ming Dong was still grinning cheekily as he watched the two-handed sword hurtling towards him. His face was relaxed. He did not take an attack like that seriously at all. Just when the huge sword was about to hit Ming Dong's waist, Ming Dong extended his right hand steadily. Although it seemed very casual to him, it was extremely fast in the eyes of others. Ming Dong's right hand was wrapped in a faint layer of wind-attributed Saint Force. In an instant, his thumb and index finger came together and firmly caught Ka Diyun's huge sword. Ka Diyun's pupils suddenly shrank. He stared in disbelief at the giant sword that Ming Dong had caught between two fingers. His heart was in turmoil. You caught my holy weapon with just 2 fingers. Ka Diyun couldn't help but cry out in surprise. His face was filled with disbelief. Ming Dong chuckled. What's so great about that? Kid, do you still dare to call me arrogant? Ka Diyun's face paled. The light in his eyes flickered as he growled. Just who are you? Why are you trying to make things difficult for me? I'm not trying to make things difficult for you. I'm just playing around with you. I want to see just how capable the person who once challenged my brother is. As for who I am, I'll obviously tell you once you defeat me. Ming Dong's face was filled with playfulness. He let go of the saint weapon between his fingers and said, "Continue attacking. Use your full strength. Only then might you have a chance at forcing me back. Of course, you don't need to worry about anything. I said I wouldn't bully a kid, so I won't hurt you. You don't need to worry about anything." This time, Ka Diyun didn't show any anger after hearing Ming Dong's humiliating and disdainful words. This was because he understood that Ming Dong was definitely stronger than him from the exchange of blows just now. Ka Diyun gripped his huge sword tightly as he glared at Ming Dong like a venomous snake. He bellowed out and used the same battle skill again. The huge sword stabbed toward Ming Dong with an even more powerful ripple of energy. A battle skill used by a Saint Master, even if it was the lowest level of a human tier battle skill, was enough for a great Saint Master to take it seriously. The wind-attributed Saint Force circulating around Ming Dong's hand became even denser. Just as Ka Diyun's huge sword approached him, he suddenly struck out with his hand and struck the huge sword with great precision. Pa! The palm collided with the huge sword, producing a crisp sound. The powerful energy within the huge sword was as weak as an ant before Ming Dong. It was completely dispersed by the palm without any effort. At the same time, the powerful force was transmitted to the saint weapon, forcing Ka Diyun to retreat several meters. His hand that held the saint weapon became numb from the impact. Ka Diyun was shocked. He stared blankly at Ming Dong, who stood in front of him. His heart was in turmoil. It was very difficult for him to accept what had just happened. The first time he had used his full strength, his weapon had been caught between 2 fingers by Ming Dong. This time he had used all of his battle skills without holding back. Yet Ming Dong had struck his saint weapon with a single palm. Before he could even use his battle skill, Ming Dong had dispersed it with a single slap. Ming Dong's strength was so great that Ka Diyun was deeply shocked. Not only was Ka Diyun shocked, but even the area below the stage had become deathly silent. The several thousand students who stood around the stage all stared blankly at the scene in front of them. All of them were shocked and filled with disbelief. At this moment, Jianchen was probably the only one who could remain calm among the several thousand spectators below the stage. However, his face was filled with a bitter smile and helplessness. Ming Dong clapped his hands and stared at Ka Diyun with a smile. He hooked his finger and said, "Come. Let's continue. You just need to try a little harder and you'll be able to force me back." Ka Diyun stared at Ming Dong with an unsettled expression. He found it very difficult to calm down because Ming Dong did not seem to be over 30 years old. He was not much older than him, but Ming Dong possessed such terrifying strength. Even when he used his battle skill, He was unable to make Ming Dong move a single step. This was very difficult for him to accept. "Sir, this is Kargath Academy. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. You have barged into Kargath Academy without permission and interfered with the competition between students. You have severely violated the rules of our Kargath Academy. Please accept the punishment of our Kargath Academy immediately." At this moment, a dignified voice rang out. The voice was loud and resounded throughout the entire arena. As soon as the voice finished speaking, a white figure shot over from outside with lightning speed. He directly leapt onto the stage and stood in front of Ming Dong. The newcomer was a middle-aged man. His appearance was average, but he was filled with dignity. His eyes were bright and piercing, radiating a sharp light. Those weaker students did not dare to look him in the eye. "Vice Principal, it's the Vice Principal!" Following the appearance of this middle-aged man, the audience below the stage immediately warmly welcomed him. Vice Principal Bayan's arrival made Ka Di-yin, who did not know what to do, reveal a relaxed expression. He looked at the smiling Ming Dong with some schadenfreude. Then he immediately said to Bayan, "Vice Principal, he is not a student of our Kargath Academy. Not only did he violate the rules of our Kargath Academy by sneaking in, he also interfered with our internal competition. I will deal with this matter. You can leave now." Vice Principal Bayan said with his back facing Ka Di-yin. However, his expression was solemn as he stared at Ming Dong. Ka Di-yin didn't say much. Vice Dean Bayan's intervention had solved his dilemma. Ka Di-yin immediately jumped down from the ring. "So you are the Vice Principal of Kargath Academy. Nice to meet you, nice to meet you." Ming Dong smiled and cupped his hands towards Bayan. His attitude was still considered polite. However, Bayan did not fall for his tricks. He stared at Ming Dong with a sharp gaze and expressionlessly said, "You have already violated the rules of our Kargath Academy. Come with me to see the Vice Principal and accept his punishment." "Vice Principal, are you talking about Kaffir?" Ming Dong laughed. He did not feel the slightest bit of pressure. After all, he and Kaffir were acquaintances. Chapter 533. Bayan's single-handed sword stabbed toward Ming Dong with lightning-like speed. None of the students below the stage could see his movements clearly. No one was able to catch a trace of Bayan's weapon. A battle between Earth Saint Masters was far more powerful than a battle between Saint Masters, whether it was in terms of speed or strength. The students, who were all saints and great saints, did not have the ability to observe a battle between Earth Saint Masters in detail. All the students around the stage immediately held their breaths when they saw Bayan personally take action. They all watched with wide eyes. Although they could not see the battle in detail, it was still a fatal attraction to them. In their eyes, battles between Earth Saint Masters were just far too rare. At the very least, they had never seen Bayan personally take action in the past few years. Ming Dong stood in his original spot, not moving at all. Bayan's single-handed sword pierced through Ming Dong's chest without any resistance. Many of the students who saw this scene below the stage let out cries of surprise, cheering for Bayan. Those who didn't know what was going on thought Ming Dong had been pierced through by Bayan's sword. However, Bayan was unable to cheer up at all. Instead, he became stern. His single-handed sword had not touched anything solid. It had only pierced through an afterimage that had yet to disperse. "Vice Principal Bayan, you're too slow. I'm behind you." Before Bayan could even turn around, Ming Dong's figure appeared from behind him. Bayan's expression drastically changed because he had actually failed to sense how his opponent had gotten behind him. Moreover, from the sound of his opponent's voice, he could tell that his opponent was extremely close to him. If Ming Dong attacked him now, it would be very difficult for him to dodge. Bayan had been through hundreds of battles in the past. Without any hesitation, he immediately slid to the side. At the same time, he spun around and stabbed his single-handed sword at Ming Dong. Ming Dong gently pushed off the stage with the tip of his foot. Wrapped in a layer of wind energy, he turned into an azure blur that drifted backwards. He easily dodged Bai Yan's attack. However, Bai Yan did not let Ming Dong go. He stomped his feet heavily on the stage and shot toward Ming Dong like an arrow. He pointed his single-handed sword at Ming Dong's chest. Ming Dong didn't get angry. He gave Bai Yan a meaningful smile. Then, just as he was about to retreat to the edge of the stage, he suddenly stopped. Then he quickly moved to the side. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and crossed paths with Bai Yan. At the moment when the two crossed paths, Ming Dong's right palm lightly pressed against Bai Yan's back with surging wind elemental energy. Bai Yan had already chased Ming Dong to the edge of the stage. It was already very difficult for him to stop. However, with the addition of the enormous force from Ming Dong's palm on his back, Bai Yan's body was immediately sent flying out of the stage. He glided through the air for over 30 meters before landing on the ground. At this moment, the force Ming Dong had applied to his body had not completely dissipated. It forcefully pushed his body forward a few steps before he came to a stop in a somewhat sorry state. Ming Dong and Bai Yan had exchanged a few blows in the blink of an eye. Although the students did not clearly see the process of the exchange, the current situation could not be more clear. Ming Dong was still standing on the stage. Although Vice President Bai Yan did not know why he had flown out of the stage. According to the rules of the arena, once he left the stage, it was considered a loss. Vice President Bai Yan's situation clearly meant that he had already lost this match. When the situation in front of them became clear, the eyes of the several thousand students all widened. Their faces were filled with disbelief. This was because everyone could clearly see that Vice President Bai Yan had completely lost to this unknown outsider. This time, even the 3 Kadin siblings were tongue-tied. They stood there blankly for a long time without saying anything. Although the 3 siblings knew that Ming Dong was very strong, they never thought that Ming Dong's strength would be at such a level. Even Vice President Bai Yan had lost to him. Is he really an Earth Saint Master? Ka Dilion said with some difficulty. The shock in his heart had already reached an extreme level. This was because Ming Dong's age was just too young. He was not much older than his brother Ka Diyun. Ka Diyun and Ka Dakielai did not say anything. Their gazes were complicated and filled with shock as they stared at the nonchalant Ming Dong on the stage. But Ming Dong's demeanor caused Kadi Chioli and Kadi Yin to simultaneously have a crazy thought. Could it be that defeating Kargath Academy's vice principal, Bai Yan, was an insignificant matter to him? Vice President Bai Yan also stared at Ming Dong on the stage with a face full of shock. His heart was filled with incomparable shock. As the person involved, he obviously understood that Ming Dong's palm strike on his back was enough to heavily injure him. He was only being merciful. Vice President Bai Yan suppressed his shock and jumped back onto the stage. His expression was complicated as he looked at Ming Dong. He cupped his fist and said, "Brother, thank you for being merciful." Bai Yan's words were like a heavy bomb in the ears of many students, causing their minds to shake violently. Ming Dong waved his hand without a care. He said, "We're all family. I was just playing around. If I had really injured you, I'm afraid that my brother would not have let me off easily. Ha 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 ha, little friend. Why didn't you inform me that you were coming to my Kargath Academy to play? I could have come out personally to greet you. How could such a misunderstanding have occurred?" At this moment, an old man's laughter came from the sky. An old man in a white robe slowly flew over with a smile on his face. "It's the president. The president is here." Seeing this old man, all of the students immediately went into an uproar. Headmaster Kaffer was one of the most famous experts in the Jessin Kingdom and had a very high prestige in the eyes of the students. However, because the headmaster rarely appeared in public, it was hard for the students to see him even if they stayed here for 4 or 5 years. Now that the president had suddenly come in person, how could they not be excited? President Kaffer of Kargath Academy slowly landed on the stage. He looked at Ming Dong with a smile on his face. His expression was very gentle. "President Kaffer, I didn't think that you would actually come. Haha, an outsider like me seems to have broken some rules by coming to Kargath Academy. You won't be angry, right? Ming Dong cupped his hands towards Kaffir and smiled. No, it's our honor to have little friend come to our Kargath Academy to play. I can't wait to welcome you. How could I be angry? President Kaffir said with a smile. Then he stood up and looked at Bayan. He said, Bayan, it's not wrong for you to be defeated by this little friend. If this little friend didn't show mercy, you would have been seriously injured. Next time, don't act so recklessly, understand? Bayan understands. Bayan replied respectfully. Then he looked at Ming Dong with a complicated gaze. He was curious about Ming Dong's identity. He cupped his hands and asked, How should I address this brother? President Kaffir laughed and said, This little friend is called Ming Dong. He is a respected guest of the kingdom of Jessen. Bayan, you should have heard of little friend Ming Dong's great name. Ming Dong? Bayan was slightly surprised. He seemed to be in deep thought, but his expression soon changed. He stared at Ming Dong in shock and cried out, Don't tell me he's that Ming Dong who heavily injured the enemy Heaven Saint Masters with a Heaven tier battle skill as an Earth Saint Master at the Northern Fort? Bayan did not suppress his voice in the slightest. So many of the students in the field could hear him clearly, causing an uproar to break out. What? He's that Ming Dong who showed off his skills at the Northern Fort. So he's Ming Dong. No wonder he's so strong. I heard that Ming Dong's strength is infinitely close to becoming a Heaven Saint Master. He's only a step away. I heard that Ming Dong has grasped a Heaven tier battle skill and injured quite a few peak Heaven Saint Masters. After the battle at the Northern Fort, Ming Dong's name had spread far and wide in the kingdom of Jessen. There was almost no one who did not know him. Even in the Kargath Academy, there were very few people who did not know his name. This made him an idol in the hearts of many students. After learning of Ming Dong's identity, the expressions of the three siblings immediately became very interesting. So he's Ming Dong. Ha ha ha, he's a hero that I, Ka Diyunshin, have admired for a very long time. I, Ka Diyun, have not been wrong to lose to him. Ka Diyun laughed heartily. The displeasure he felt towards Ming Dong due to what had just happened had completely disappeared. Brother, he's actually Ming Dong. Ka Diliang stared at Ming Dong in the ring, tongue-tied. His expression was extremely rich. Ming Dong's achievements were like thunder to their ears. Not only did he possess the strength of an Earth Saint Master at such a young age, he also grasped a Heaven tier battle skill and could even injure a Heaven Saint Master. Such a glorious achievement had made Ming Dong the hero that the two brothers revered the most. He had become the goal that the two brothers had always wanted to chase after. Ka Di Chioli's gaze towards Ming Dong was also filled with surprise. She had never thought that this extremely powerful outsider would actually be the famous Ming Dong. Now that Principal Kaffir had personally come, Jianqin could not continue watching. He leapt onto the ring and clasped his hands with a smile. Principal Kaffir, Vice Principal Bayan. Chapter 534. As soon as he heard the name Changyang Shoten, Bayan was shocked. He hurriedly bowed to Jianqin. Bayan greets Sir Imperial Protector. Although Jianqin used to be a student of Kargath Academy, his status was different now. Not only was he a Heaven Saint Master, he was also the first Imperial Protector of the Kingdom of Jessen in several hundred years. His status was incomparable to before. Even with Bayan's status as the Vice Principal of Kargath Academy, he still had to bow to Jianqin. As soon as the spectating students heard that this white-robed outsider was the famous Imperial Protector of the Kingdom of Jessen, Changyang Shoten, they were all shocked. A huge commotion broke out as they stared at Jianqin with burning gazes. Their faces were filled with admiration and reverence. If Ming Dong was said to be the object of worship in the hearts of the students, then Jianqin was a high and mighty god in the hearts of the students of Kargas, an inviolable existence. This was because Jianqin had once been an influential figure in Kargath Academy. The things that had happened to him in Kargath Academy were still passed down to this day. He was the champion of the freshman competition. He had hunted down magical beasts and obtained a shocking amount of monster cores. He had defeated Kadiun, who had condensed a saint weapon, with his strength not even at the saint realm. Finally, he had severed the arm of the Huayan sect's junior sect master, Cheng Mingxiang, with his strength only just reaching the saint realm. He had even heavily injured the dozen or so students accompanying him. Every single one of these things was enough to cause an uproar among the students of Kargath Academy. But now, in just a few short years, Changyang Shoten had become a heaven saint master and had even become the imperial protector of the kingdom of Jessen. This dazzling achievement had made Changyang Shoten a god in the hearts of all the students of Kargath Academy. Many students did not even dare to show their jealousy. This was because heaven saint masters were existences that these students could only look up to. This level of cultivation was something that they would never be able to touch in their entire lives. Below the stage, Ka Dakielai's limpid eyes were wide open. Her expression was complicated and envious as she stared at the white-robed Changyang Shoten. He's actually Changyang Shoten. No wonder he looked so familiar. Looking at the handsome and masculine face on the stage, Cuddy chilly murmured in a low voice. He couldn't help but recall the scenes from a few years ago, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. Back then, Changyang Shoten, her and her second brother, Ka Diliang, had all entered Kargath Academy at the same time. None of them had reached the Saint Realm and were still below the Saint Realm, but now only a few years had passed. The strongest of the three siblings, Kadun, had only recently broken through the bottleneck of Great Saint Realm and had yet to leave Kargath Academy. On the other hand, Jianqin had become a peak Heaven Saint Master in just a few years. Heaven Saint Master, this was a level that many people yearned for. After learning the identities of Jianqin and Jianqin, the only ones who could remain calm were the three siblings. Ka Diun and Ka Diliang also stared at Jianqin with complicated expressions. They were speechless for a long time because the two of them still remembered the unhappiness that had occurred between them and Jianqin. Although Jianqin had become a Heaven Saint Master and was the imperial protector of the kingdom of Jessen, he did not put on any airs. He quickly helped Vice Principal by Enup and said a few polite words. Changyang Shoten, since you've come, why don't you come to my place and have a seat? Allow me to be a good host, Kefil said with a smile. The fact that Jianqin was able to come to Kargath Academy meant that he hadn't forgotten about this place. This made Headmaster Kafir overjoyed as well. Then I'll have to trouble you, Principal. Jianqin clasped his hands with a smile. It's no trouble at all. You being able to come here is the honor of all the teachers and students of Kargath Academy. Kafir said with a chuckle. Then he slowly rose into the air and flew towards the tower in the center of the academy. Jianqin did not want to fall behind. He controlled the wind element with his mind and brought Mingdong into the air. He followed behind Kefil and left the arena at a steady pace, leaving behind a large group of students who looked at them enviously. Very quickly, Jianqin and Mingdong followed behind Kefil and flew to the top floor of the tower. This was not only Kefil's office, but also his resting place. There was a guest hall and a lounge. Kefil walked to the table and sat down. After telling Jianqin and Mingdong to sit down, he took out a bottle of wine from his space ring and poured a cup for them, saying, "This is a gift from an old friend who specializes in wine. It's called 100-flower wine. It's made from hundreds of precious ingredients and special refining methods. It's extremely precious, and I usually can't bear to drink it. Have a taste and see how it tastes." Jianqin and Mingdong did not stand on ceremony and picked up the cup to taste it. After taking a small sip, they let out a sigh. It really is good wine. It's much better than the imperial wine I drank in the palace. Jianqin also downed the wine in his cup. It had to be said that the wine Kaffir had brought out was indeed very delicious, but compared to the 100 herbs brew the Ape King had given him, it was still a far cry. After drinking this cup of wine, Jianqin gently put down the cup and took out a jade bottle from his space ring, saying, "Principal Kafel, I'll also treat you to a cup of real wine." Jianqin took out the 1,000-year-old 100-grass wine. Back then, the Ape King had given him 5 caddies, and in order to increase his strength, Jianqin had used 9 caddies. Now he only had 1 caddy left. As Jianqin slowly poured out the 1,000-year-old 100-grass wine from the jade bottle, a strong wine aroma spread out, filling the entire room in an instant. Smelling the strong wine aroma, Principal Kafel was immediately surprised and sighed, "Good wine, good wine. Just the smell of the wine is so intoxicating. This must be a great wine. Changyang Shoten, where did you get this wine?" "Wow, Jianqin, you actually hid something so good on you. Quickly pour me a cup and let me have a taste." Ming Dong impatiently pushed the cup to Jianqin's side as he looked at Jianqin with shining eyes. Jianqin chuckled and poured another cup for Ming Dong. "Drink slowly. This wine can't be bought outside even if you have money. When I went to the Cross Mountains, I spent a lot of effort to get it from the Ape King of the spiritual apes. He's a saint ruler, and I don't have much left on me right now. Every little bit I drink is a little bit less." Principal Kafel violently trembled when he heard that the wine had been given to him by the Ape King of the spiritual apes. He looked at Jianqin in disbelief. The Cross Mountains had always been a forbidden zone for humans. It was impossible for anyone who entered to come out. He had never thought that not only had Jianqin entered, he had even gotten such a great wine from a saint ruler of the magical beasts. This was just unbelievable. On the other hand, Ming Dong didn't reveal any abnormalities. He seemed to know that this wine wasn't easy to come by. He took a sip of the 100-herb brew and closed his eyes in an intoxicated manner, savoring the wonderful feeling of the wine entering his stomach. Seeing Ming Dong's intoxicated expression, even Headmaster Koffel, who had always loved good wine, couldn't help but suppress the distracting thoughts in his mind. He lifted the cup and took a sip, his eyes immediately shining brightly as he couldn't help but praise, "It really is good wine. This is the first time I've tasted such good wine in my life. After drinking this wine, I'm afraid that in the future, all other good wine will be tasteless in my eyes." After speaking, Headmaster Koffel downed the cup of wine in one gulp. Principal Kafel closed his eyes in an intoxicated manner. Not only could the Millennium Jade strengthen one's saint force, it could even strengthen one's soul. As a result, both Ming Dong and Kafel could not help but close their eyes after drinking the wine. Jianqin smiled as he looked at the two of them. The first time he drank the 100 herbs brew, the scene was exactly the same as the two of them. Suddenly, Jianqin's expression changed slightly as he stared at Principal Kafel in shock. He saw a layer of yuan qi appear around Principal Kafel's body, revolving around him. The yuan qi grew stronger and stronger until it finally lifted Kafel's body into the air. At the same time, a powerful aura was released from Principal Kafel's body, waking Ming Dong from the wonderful feeling of the 100 herbs brew. "What's going on?" Seeing Principal Kafel's body floating in the air, Ming Dong asked with a face full of confusion. Jianqin pulled Ming Dong back a bit and said with a smile, "Principal Kafel has broken through." "What? He broke through?" Ming Dong was shocked as his gaze fell on the cup in his hand. His face was full of disbelief. He couldn't have broken through after drinking this wine, right? Jianqin nodded and smiled without saying anything. He had experienced the effects of the 100 herbs brew. The aura around Principal Kafel did not last for too long. After a few breaths, it calmed down and his body gently landed on the ground. He slowly opened his eyes with a face full of joy. "Congratulations, Principal Kafel. Your strength has reached a new level." Jianqin hurriedly congratulated. Principal Kafel laughed heartily, "Ha ha ha ha," as expected of a peerless wine. "It actually has such a miraculous effect." My strength had already reached the peak of the third cycle of Heaven's Saint Master 2 years ago, but I was unable to break through. I never thought that today this cup of wine would break through the bottleneck and allow me to smoothly advance to the fourth cycle of Heaven's Saint Master. This wine actually has such an effect. Ming Dong was also shocked. He immediately imitated Kaffir's method of drinking the wine in his cup in one gulp before closing his eyes. A moment later, Ming Dong finally finished digesting the medicinal effects of the wine. He sighed. Although I didn't break through, my saint force has become even more condensed. Moreover, I feel that my will has become much stronger. This wine is simply a treasure that cannot be bought with money. What do you mean by cannot be bought with money? This 100 herbs brew is only available to the magical beast clan. It can't be bought outside. Jianqin corrected him. Jianqin, pour me another cup. Ming Dong handed the cup to Jianqin and looked at Jianqin pitifully. Jianqin decisively put the jade bottle into his space ring and said with a pained expression, I don't have much left of this 100 herbs brew. How can it withstand your drinking like this? Ming Dong pouted and muttered, It's fine if you don't want to give it to me. Once I reach the Saint Ruler realm, I'll directly ask for it from the Spirit Ape Clan. Chapter 535. Kaffir chuckled. It's good that you still remember Taita. However, Taita left Kargath Academy 2 years ago and went back to his hometown. He hasn't been here in a long time. Originally, I wanted to go visit Taita's hometown, but at that time the 4 countries were on the verge of making a move. I was too busy to leave, so I didn't have the time to visit Taita even if I wanted to. AI, speaking of which, I'm really not a good teacher. Taita is still young and needs to be properly trained, but I didn't really teach him much. Principal Kaffir, there's no need to blame yourself. Although Taita is a simple and honest person, I can see that he has great talent in martial arts. Perhaps he doesn't need anyone to teach him and can learn without a teacher. The only thing that's left is his lack of experience. This is something that needs to be accumulated. Only through actual combat can one improve quickly. Jianqin said with a faint smile. Kaffir nodded in agreement and said, I remember Iron Tower once told me that his hometown was in a small mountain village. The location seemed to be more than 1,000 kilometers to the north in the mountains. Halfway up the mountains, there was a small city. As for the specific location, I don't know. Jianqin suddenly had an idea. He took out a map of the Kingdom of Jessen from his space ring and spread it out on the table as he began to search carefully. Very quickly, Jianqin found the terrain that matched Kaffir's description. He pointed at a spot on the map and said, It should be here. There's a 3rd-grade city built halfway up the mountain. I think Taita lives here. Kaffir stared at the map for a while and said, And it should be here. Jianqin didn't stay for long. He put away the map and bid farewell to Principal Kaffir. He brought Ming Dong with him as he flew towards the small city 1,000 kilometers away. With Jianqin's speed, they arrived at the small city in less than 2 hours. This small city was a 3rd-grade city called Yellow Earth City. It was built halfway up the mountain and was much smaller than Wake City. It was very simple and crude, and even the most basic of city walls weren't complete. Moreover, the ground inside the city wasn't paved with smooth marble, but rather with uneven mountain rocks that made it difficult for carriages to pass through. Jianqin and Ming Dong didn't directly fly into the city to avoid causing a commotion. Instead, they stopped outside the city and chose to walk in. After entering the city, Jianqin found a shop that sold various kinds of meat. He took out a gold coin and said, Boss, I want to ask you about a person. As long as you tell me what I want to know, this gold coin is yours. Money can make even the devil turn millstones, let alone a mere piece of information. Moreover, 1 gold coin for a magical beast meat seller was several days of income. So of course the boss wouldn't refuse. However, he wasn't in a hurry to take the gold coin in Jianqin's hand. He said, Little brother, tell me what it is. As long as I, Dezhuang, know what it is, I will definitely tell you. Boss, do you know a person called Taita? He's about the same age as me. Jianchen asked. Hearing this, the boss's eyes immediately revealed a trace of happiness. He hurriedly said, I know. Is the person you're talking about the dark-skinned brat? He's a very sturdy-looking fellow with dark skin. He's a very honest young man. Yes, that's him. Boss, do you know where he lives? Jianchen's face lit up as he hurriedly asked. The boss's expression suddenly became cautious. He stared at Jianchen and Mingdong warily and said sternly, Who are you two? What business do you have with the dark-skinned brat? Jianchen knew that the boss was afraid that he would do something harmful to Taita, so he hurriedly revealed his identity. Boss, we're from Kargath Academy. We were once classmates with Taita. We've specially come to visit him this time. The boss immediately let down his guard when he heard that Jianchen and Mingdong were students of Kargath Academy. He looked at the two enviously and said, Kargath Academy is the best academy in the kingdom of Jessen. Every student who can enter Kargath Academy is very talented. I've heard that the new imperial protector of the kingdom of Jessen was once a student of Kargath Academy as well. Jianchen and Mingdong smiled when they heard this, but did not say anything. The boss thought for a moment and said, Since you're the dark-skinned brat's classmates, I'll tell you where he lives. As he spoke, the boss pointed behind him and said, Walk 20 kilometers to the back of the mountain, and there's a small river. There's a small forest beside the river, and there's a small mountain village in the forest. There's a row of houses in the village, and one of the houses is where the dark-skinned brat lives. Why don't you just say that he lives in a small mountain village 20 kilometers away from the back of the mountain? You're making me dizzy. Mingdong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Jianchen chuckled and tossed the gold coin to the boss. He then pulled Mingdong out of the small town. At the same time, he leapt through the forest and hurried towards the back of the mountain. A short distance of 20 kilometers was far too short for the two of them. Jianchen couldn't even be bothered to fly. From time to time, 1 or 2 wild beasts would leap out of the forest and howl at the two of them. However, the two of them couldn't even be bothered to look at these beasts that weren't even Class 1 magical beasts. Jianchen and Mingdong leapt through the forest with lightning speed. After crossing a river that was around 5 meters wide and passing through a small forest, they really did find another small mountain village. The small mountain village was very small. There were only about 30 families living in it. All the houses were lined up neatly. Around the small mountain village, there was a field. The field was filled with all kinds of crops and rice. There were even some villagers working in the field. Jianchen and Mingdong walked through the fields and arrived before the mountain village with light steps. After a long journey, their shoes were still spotless. There wasn't a speck of dust on them. Because the two of them were wearing luxurious robes, they were very conspicuous compared to the villagers who lived in the small mountain village. Therefore, when the two of them approached, they attracted the attention of many villagers. Immediately, many of the villagers became nervous, and many of them even tightly gripped the hoes and sickles used for farm work. Young masters, may I ask why you've come here? An old man trembled as he arrived before the two of them and asked carefully. Jianchen was an amiable person. He smiled at the old man and said gently, Sir, we're students from Kargath Academy. We used to be classmates with Taita. We've come here mainly to find Taita. Oh, so you're Little Black's friend. The old man let out a sigh of relief. He waved his hand at the surrounding villagers and said with a hoarse voice, Everyone, don't be nervous. These two are students from Kargath Academy. They've come here to find Little Black. They used to be classmates with Little Black. Hearing this, the tense expressions on the villagers' faces immediately relaxed. Jianchen looked at this scene with suspicion. These villagers' reactions seemed a bit abnormal. Sir, did something happen here recently? Jianchen asked curiously. Nothing. The old man waved his hand and said, "Little Black went hunting in the mountains early in the morning. He'll probably be back in a while. You guys go sit in the house first." Jianchen thought about it and agreed. "All right, then I'll bother you." At this moment, a deep voice came from afar. Father, mother, grandfather, first uncle, second uncle, uncles, aunties, and back. Jianchen and Mingdong instinctively turned their heads and saw a burly, dark-skinned, bald man walking over with a wild boar on his shoulder. "That's Little Black. Little Black's back." "Oh, you've actually hunted such a large wild boar again," the old man said happily. Mingdong studied the burly man carrying the boar and asked in disbelief, "Jianchen, is this the Taita you're looking for?" Jianchen nodded with a smile. "That's right. He's Taita. He was the only friend I knew back in Kargath Academy. A few years have passed, although he's changed so much that I almost can't recognize him anymore. His voice is still the same as before." At this moment, Taita, who had returned with the wild boar, also noticed the 2 extra people in the village. He paused slightly before throwing the wild boar to the ground. He strode over to Jianchen and asked, "Who are you 2? Strange. Why do I feel a sense of familiarity from you? Have we met somewhere before?" Taita's voice was rather cold at first, but when he noticed Jianchen, he immediately became suspicious. He stared at Jianchen in surprise and doubt. Jianchen was amazed as well when he saw Taita. After a few years, Taita had actually become even more burly. Just his body alone made him seem like a small mountain. With Jianchen's height of 8 meters, he could only reach Taita's chest. Taita was at least 5 meters tall. Jianchen raised his head slightly to look at the mountainous Taita. He smiled brightly and said, "Taita, it's only been a few years. Can't you recognize me already?" Taita frowned when he heard the familiar voice. He pondered for a moment and murmured, "This voice." After a moment of thought, Taita's eyes suddenly lit up as if he had thought of something. He immediately stared at Jianchen in wild joy and said excitedly, "Why, you're Changyang Shoten. You're Changyang Shoten. I remember your voice." Jianchen chuckled. "Taita, I thought you'd forgotten about me.